What's up, guys? Welcome to For Yourself, episode 102 with Matt Z, the specialized generalist. I had to record this little intro video because as soon as we started talking, we just started rolling and just like totally forgot to like do an intro and all that stuff. So I just like cut it at a spot where I thought was good and wanted to get started. So I hope you guys really enjoy this podcast. He is absolutely brilliant. We go over so many things in health and fitness and mental health and just like life, man. It was an awesome podcast. I hope you guys really like it, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. Your love and support means the world to me. Before you leave, make sure you hit the like button on the video, and don't forget, of course, smash that subscribe button. Love you guys. Appreciate you. Like my one thing that I've limited myself to is I have the TV, but it won't go on before midnight. Like, and I'm only up from midnight to 2 because my sleep schedule, I've been working till midnight for a year and a half.
It's your normal.
So my sleep schedule, like I'm not going to bed till 2 a.m. I'm not waking up till 10 a.m. But that's okay because that's an 8-hour, like, sure. Mine's different. Like I don't beat myself up about not waking up at 4 a.m. to start working out. You know what I mean?
And to that point, there was at least one popular book written about this. It's a field called chronobiology. So it's the study of circadian rhythms, which is not just your sleep-wake cycle. It's every hormonal cycle you have, all your neurotransmitter cycles. When to exercise, when you should take medicine, when to have sex, when to lift heavy, when to do cardio, when you should study, when you're like, all this stuff is studied, right? There's tons of research. People have compiled it and made books. And I think there's 4 different chronotypes. There's a normal one, which is like 10 to 6, 10:30 to 6:30. I forget what the names were. They're named after like fucking animals and stuff. I don't know. But there are later ones. Right, so you're doing the right thing, and this is something we'll talk about. This is going to come up in most of the topics. How people are misinformed, or they're kind of misguided in their viewpoint, and everything's very ego-driven. So they think how they operate is normal, is the normal, and everyone should do what they do. And it's like that's not the way anything. So many people overlay that thought process onto everything, and I hate it. So good for you for not falling into that, right? Getting sucked into it, because that's what people do. They beat themselves up because it's not normal. It's like, no, it's your normal. It's what you should be doing.
And I did go through that, like, yo, I gotta be going to sleep. Like, I gotta be getting home at midnight and passing the fuck out. Like, I need to like get, and then, but my reality was that I come home after an 8-hour day. And I'm gonna eat my final meal of the day, like a normal person after their work day. They're gonna eat their final meal, and like I don't have the ability to just shut it off.
Yeah, sure.
Like my body doesn't just eat meal, shut off. So I have
which is technically probably not a good thing to do.
Yeah,
to eat a big meal and go to bed right away.
Yeah, but for me, I've been the person who comes home, eats, lays down in bed, whether it be, so like I do fall asleep faster if I go right and put a meditation on, right? Like I do know smart. That type of stuff, right?
Yep.
It's why am I up till 4 a.m. sometimes? Because I get caught up in a show that I want to keep watching the next episode, right?
Sure,
I know
you're
that
engaged.
Happens.
Yeah.
I know that happens. So like when that happens, but then I fall into so now 8 hours from there is noon, right? And I got to be at work at 3:30. So I know when I'm clicking like play next, I know that I'm cutting into my possible workout time, my possible cooking time, my possible all that stuff. So sometimes I let it fly and I'm just like, I'm going to go get through it. And sometimes I'm like, whatever. Like,
and that's the mature adult response, because so here's the cool part. And this is all, it's funny that we're having this conversation now because this is all stuff that I wanted to get into. You're taking responsibility for your choices, right? Sometimes the right choice is to watch the show when you're so caught up in it. You're in a flow state. You're optimally engaged. That's fucking cool to be in a state like that, right? Yeah. No matter what you're doing. And it's like, okay, my workout's going to suffer. I don't have any competitions coming up anytime soon. I can scale back. It's not a big deal, right? Because it's a long-term endeavor. Sometimes it's like, fuck, tomorrow is my high intensity, moderate volume. Like, I want to hit this PR. It's like, screw the show. I'm going to bed. Right.
Yeah.
But the big part and the cool part is that you actually take responsibility and don't beat yourself up for something that society says is the wrong choice. It's like, who the fuck made those rules up? It's like, and even if it is the wrong choice, don't beat yourself up for it. It's the choice that you made this time. Then just next time, don't do that.
Yeah. And then so I went through that hole where I was beating myself up. Then I realized it's okay. Yep. And then I feel like I spoke into existence where someone posted a meme, not a meme, like a motivational picture that said 5 a.m. is either the time when hard workers are either waking up or going to bed. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it might not be the TV show, but it's something I saw in a TV show, something I heard on a meditation, some thought that I had that I get up and I got to get down and I wind up doing stuff on my laptop and just I can't control when the creative part of my brain yet. I can't control yet when the creative part of my brain turns on and starts flowing. I know different ways to try and get myself into the mindset of it, but when something happens, I don't ever want to have the thought, because like if you have a thought before you go to bed, you don't remember that thought in the morning because we remember thoughts, right?
Correct.
So if I'm laying in bed and I'm tired, but I have a thought and I think it's really good, like I got to either get out my phone and jot down a note, or I just got to go with the flow of it and actually write it down and put it down. So
that's the artist dilemma, right? Artist, someone who creates, which a lot of scientists, like history's the United States great scientists, these great inventors. If you're an inventor, you're an artist, you're a creator. That's what an artist is, right? They're creating something. And there's stories about those people having like parchment or a notebook by their bed. They can write shit down before they go to bed. Sometimes they'll wake up so they can write shit down. Or when they wake up in the morning, they'll write about their dreams. The crazy stories, and I think I only heard this once. It was on a podcast. I have no idea who it was or what it was about. The guy was like, he woke up in the middle of the night, wrote something down, woke up in the morning, had no idea he woke up in the middle of the night. And that idea became like an 8 or 9 figure business. Like the brain is crazy like that. Like your subconscious is crazy. You're doing the right thing.
And the whole, you want to take it a step further with people that do that, write something down during an acid trip, during a mushroom trip, during some
altered mind state.
A Kundalini yoga out of body experience and stuff like that. So
one thing just on top of what you're saying, like an altered mind state, sitting in a sauna for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, sometimes it's a grueling experience. Sometimes I've had great ideas, not something that I can produce, but a new way of thinking about something, right? And I'm like, fuck, that's brilliant. I'm going to tell that to this person, that person, that person. It works for all them. And I didn't have a chance to write it down. And I literally could not remember it. And I'm like, oh my God. And a while ago, someone said, again, I think it was a podcast, and he was dealing with these issues that we're talking about. He was like, the brain is great at coming up with ideas and terrible at remembering them. And I'm like, holy shit, isn't that true? Isn't that true?
Now, and to add to that, I also had, so the way that an addict's mind works is that usually there's a negative thought first. And that negative thought is, if they keep going with it, is they keep going deeper into the hole. That also happens with someone who's depression, someone who is bipolar, someone that's kind of the pattern.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, the thought, and then you keep either digging or you realize you have the thought and you get out of it. Now, sometimes when you have the thought, it's the thought becomes an idea, but if it's a negative idea, it sounds good in my head, like I'm going to go and do this wild thing that sounds good in my head. And then that idea is always a great idea until I then say it out loud to someone. And then I realize how stupid the idea is.
But that's part of learning.
Yeah.
That's actually a good learning process.
if you say it out
If
loud,
you say it out loud,
not
yeah.
if you keep that wheel turning.
Correct.
And
Well,
it's been,
and that's why isolation fucks people up. You don't have anyone to talk to, because that's very important because of what you just said. A lot of what happens up here is negative. I don't know if it's cultural. Part of it is definitely part of being human, part of being a mammal, part of being an animal, operating in the animal kingdom, trying to survive, trying to thrive, all these things, right? And then our society definitely perpetuates some of those negative aspects. So like you're bombarded by that shit all the time, but it's real easy to be delusional and to not see things for the way they are, to see them in a negative light. And if you don't ever have a conversation, you go on thinking that's a truth, when in actuality, it might not be. And even if it is, if it's negative, you should probably try and spin it a different way, because who the fuck is that helping? It's certainly not helping you, right?
like and I'm happy that this is before the that we get started, because I'm bringing up Joe Rogan again, and like I'm trying to not be the person who is like, oh my God, you're trying to just be like Joe Rogan and do this podcast, and that's a negative voice in my head, right? When I know that, right, and that so I know when I say that out loud, that's not really what I'm doing, because my message is different, and what I was explaining to you guys about how I really want to create awareness for addiction and stuff. I actually want to have people on that telling their stories and stuff, but letting them choose to be anonymous or not anonymous, right?
Yeah.
Almost always, I think what I should do is always have the addict be anonymous, so that there's not an addict that comes on thinking they're going to get popular because they're on my podcast type.
That's a really good point.
So I think
that's a really good point.
I'm going to do. But I don't know if I want to break my own anonymity with addiction and all that, because I don't want my brand to become about that. But I do want it to be known that I support. I want the awareness to come in where people realize, come to see that addicts are normal people that have a disease. It's not they want to hurt everybody. It's once the drug is in the system, nothing else matters besides the drug. So that's when all the pain of everyone else and it happens to the people closest to them, the people they love the most directly. So there's a whole another part to all that. I forget how I got off onto that tangent. Oh, because
you're saying the negative thought about not being like Joe Rogan.
We were talking about isolation, and think about this. The reason why I brought up that whole thing with Joe Rogan. So because Joe, this isn't my original thought. This is something that I heard on the Joe Rogan podcast. That think about the worst possible punishment that you can get in jail is isolation. So that means them taking you away from murderers, rapists, gang members, the baddest people in the worst, and putting you by yourself is worse punishment than keeping you with the murderers, rapists, gang members, worst people. So
it's an interesting idea.
Isolation, and the reason why I was tying addiction into it is because the opposite of addiction is not abstinence from drugs, it's connection. And that is something that why AA and NA work so well, because you get into a community of people that are all going through the same thing.
That's what matters.
That love and care about you. And I know AA and NA are not the only ways to recover from addiction. Because I've seen myself do it with a combination of AA and NA, with working out, with being involved in a health. Having myself surrounded by people like you, like Kenny, like Joe, like Sean, having that connection with you guys, that all being centered around, albeit, with hot chicks and a fucking group message, but also about a healthy life.
Need hot chicks.
And then also with my music community that I have with Cosmic Academy, meeting up, in a meeting, just like AA and NA, twice a week, Sundays and Wednesdays, to do a feedback session and just talking, and always having that connection where we know we're all supporting each other.
Yeah, exactly. It matters so much.
That's what it's about. AA and NA and the 12 steps just provide another way for me to now clear the wreckage of my past. It's
That's a good phrase. I like that. I've never heard that before.
It's from A and NA. I didn't think of that. But it's clearing the wreckage of my past and finding a new way to live, right? Because it's taking, admitting I have a problem, admitting that that someone else that's gone through this problem might have a better way of living, trusting in that better way of living. Then the fourth step is about talking about all the good and bad things that I've done and what my assets are. Then, because we think we don't have any assets when we're in active addiction, we hate ourselves. And then in 6 and 7, talking about our character defects, and asking a higher power and someone else to remove those character defects from me so that I can be a better person. And then in 8 and 9, it's about making a list of people I need to make amends with. Like, I need to not just apologize with, but change the behaviors of what I did to those people to hurt them. 9, making that amends. And then 10, daily inventory. Am I do all of those things combined on a daily basis? Did I do something that I need to apologize for? Did I do something did I do something good? Did I do something bad? What can I do better? Did I get everything I had done? 11 being about prayer and meditation, having a conscious contact with my higher power, meditating to calm the fuck down some fucking times. And then the 12th step is all about just helping someone else go through those steps as well. And
bro, what you just said, so I'm not familiar with any of that, right? What you just said should be taught in school at a young age. And I'm dead serious. If people, so this is part of the problem with everything in our society, and fitness and nutrition and health and allied health field are components of that. Our society doesn't prioritize the things that you just said. And the way, as you're saying it, I'm like, oh, those things synergize and they build on this that allow you to be able to do that. Because if you start at 9, you're not ready for that shit if you didn't do everything that comes before it, right? And some of those things are really hard to do, even if you have built up to it. I respect the shit out of anybody that's able to go through that process honestly, right? And earnestly. Because you can bullshit anything and you can kind of just skate your way through it. You're doing a huge disservice to yourself. What you just said is fucking amazing, right? That's really cool stuff, but it shouldn't just be for addicts. It should be for everyone. It's beneficial information for everyone. And if it's just one person doing it and everyone else around you, because they're not familiar with those ideas, they don't operate that way. That's not what our society espouses, right? They're going to maybe side-eye you, talk behind your back, maybe say something to you, make faces, make jokes. That doesn't help you with your process that's already difficult, right? You, like you're saying, you need community, people who are doing the same shit. We need normal people doing that, and society would be much better.
See, that when I got into recovery and I found, and it's crazy because I didn't tell you that it's so important for us to do those steps in order, because each one builds up on his own. That's what we tell our sponsees and stuff and people that we
No, it's true.
It's so important to first admit that one, that you have a problem and that you're desperate enough to do something about it.
Correct.
To admit, no, step 2 is about, I don't know how to get over this problem, right? But someone else is clean and has gone through this, so maybe I should trust in them. And then 3 is making a decision to turn your will over to that person, that higher power, that whatever you believe in, to help guide you through this, so that you have then the courage to do the 4th step of writing about all the shit that you went through, all the shit that happened to you, but also then to reach deep down and pull out the assets, because you weren't always a bad person. There's never been a single person that's only ever done bad things in their life, right? There's always an instance where the good came out, right? And to recognize those. And the only way you'll be prepared to do 6 and 7 of point out your shortcomings and the things that make you tick is if you first remember that you do have assets and that you've gone through and then the only way you're going to change the behaviors that you have to make the apologies to the next person is if you first realized your shortcomings and recognized all the things that you've done and trusted your higher power. And then step 10, on a daily basis going through that, you know,
Yep.
and then
Because you got to reinforce it.
yeah. So all of that, you're so right in, and I'm happy that in the way I explained it, you came to that conclusion without me even saying it. Like that's so,
Well,
but what's also what you said that's so important, the three principles that um that our fellowship goes by is honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, right? You
yeah.
have to be
Oh,
honest through this
yep.
process. You have to
Yep.
be open-minded
Correct.
to do this process, and then you have to be willing to go to do the work to get the freedom that comes from going through those 12 steps.
Yeah.
So,
This is really hitting home for me because, you know, I've taken a long road of trying to understand why things are the way they are, right? Across the board. So it starts with the job and it starts with an individual client. And then you have to zoom out a little bit and look at the culture, and zoom out a little bit and look at our area, and zoom out a little bit and look at the country. And then you have to go and learn, because you can't figure it all out on yourself, about psychology and sociology and economics and biology and microbiology and then chemistry and physics, and how do these things all fit together, right? So as you're saying this, and this is much more well organized than my own thought process, because I've never gone through to write everything down. But so much of what you just said is how I view helping people. I overlay so much of what you just said, and especially the last three things. Those are some of my major issues with society, fitness specifically. Fitness is just a microcosm of society. That's all it is, right? And it's people being closed-minded, dogmatic, myopic, zealous, anchoring bias, confirmation bias. And it's all, for me, the big topic that ties everything together, because this is a reflection of myself. And a lot of it has to do with, in honesty, when you say that, I look at that as like being honest with yourself first. Mm-hmm. So then you can be honest with other people. In order to be honest with yourself, to understand what that is and actually like kind of apply it, you have to reflect on who you are, what you've done, why those things happen, good, bad, indifferent, how they built you to where you are. And then, because show me your last, for most people, you could say 5 years, but we could say, show me your last year or two, and I'll tell you what your next 2 years are going to look like.
Yeah.
Because we're creatures of habit and we just repeat the same shit over and over again. So being able to reflect on the past means you can see the future, in which case hindsight is foresight. Because there's this stupid phrase, and I say it, it's like, oh, hindsight's 2020. It's like, no, bro, hindsight is a vision of the future. And this, so like this was already an amazing conversation. I'm so glad we did this, because what you just said helps me immensely in organizing my thought process, but also knowing there are organizations out there who already compiled all this stuff and put it together in a system. But it's like, fuck, it's like we need to get that out to the public.
So
not because everyone's an addict in some regard. Addiction is a spectrum, and there's different So this is what I wanted to talk about, is my own story of addiction, but it has nothing to do with drugs or alcohol. It has to do with rage and anger, right? And kind of beating yourself up, and the process, why I think I was the way I was, and all the shit I did to change it, and why things are so good now. But it's like, fuck, man, I almost hit rock bottom. Like things got really bad in like my mid-20s.
And that needed to happen in order for me to go through, just like I needed to get arrested in order for me to realize that I even had a problem with drugs and alcohol. Mm-hmm. Like that's so important. And one thing so you know who Russell Brand is?
Oh yeah.
Comedian, actor. He actually, he's in recovery. He's got like,
he seems really fucking smart, by the way. He gets it. He's a big thinker.
Yeah, he's and he's got the, not the I guess the gift of gab, but his brain fires really quickly. Like gets his words out very quickly. And one thing that he did is, because it's either 13 years or like 20 years, I forget, but it's some that's amazing.
It's
right?
A big number,
right? And but he wrote a book about recovery, and the 12 steps lined up for anybody in everyday life to use. And it's basically like Do you think you're fucked? Do you think somebody that there's a way for you to get unfucked? Are you willing to do the stuff that it takes to get
To
unfucked?
unfuck yourself. Yeah.
Count, let's unfuck yourself. It's the 1, 2, and 3, 4 like that.
Yeah.
It's something like that, or that might be a different book too. That might be a book called Unfuck Yourself. I forget. I haven't read either one, so I don't know for sure which one's which. But all of that is centered. It comes from the principles of the 12 steps and
Yep.
what it means. And it's funny that I found those things because when I got into recovery and I heard about the 12 steps and stuff, I was like, everybody needs to do this. What is it? Just people in addiction?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
And then
Everybody's
I
an
realized,
addict.
one, that everybody's got an addiction to something.
Correct.
And
Correct.
two, but that addiction to that something hasn't brought people to low enough of a place to realize that they need to make a change.
Correct.
To find something to help them get through that. And like,
Correct.
just the fact that you told me right now that you with your troubles with anger and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I know, in knowing you, would
Mm-hmm.
never have guessed in a million years that you had problems with anger.
Yeah, it's
That's the growth in you.
correct.
In case, just from an outside perspective, like, I never would have thought that you ever would have had a problem with anger.
So I've mentioned this a couple times. Once when we were going to the football game in the backseat of the car, and then again when Kenny was just talking about fighting me.
Yeah.
When I'm saying I was born for violence, that's not a joke. I'm dead serious.
Now,
if my life had just a few instances of violence when I was in my formative years, I guarantee I would be in jail right now. I guarantee it, because there's something about anger, rage, and violence that I'm deeply drawn to, and it's something I still struggle with. It doesn't manifest itself. It's an inkling of what it was in my 20s, in my teens, even when I was a kid, right? I would fantasize about violence all the time. Thank God I made it through and I started making changes before any bad shit happened. Because life could have been very fucked up, like very, very fucked up.
dude, just your training style, like, again, bringing up Joe Rogan, he talks about how him working out as intensely as he does is keep the beast at bay, right?
Yeah, and that's why I got into exercise.
Like, he talks about how fucking crazy he is, and we saw it in the Sober October stuff when they actually had it as a fitness challenge, how nuts he went with that. And he's like, you guys don't, he's like, I will not lose. You guys can pick whatever the challenge is, and I'm gonna go so far because I know I can, because of the shape that I'm in, that you guys are gonna die. Like, and talks, like, he says it and you know he means it. And there was a point where he said he went on the elliptical. It was some kind of crazy workout where he literally set the fire alarm off because of the steam coming off of his body. Like, in order for you to work out that intensely, I don't care how big or small the room is, in order for you to set a fire alarm off because of the steam coming off you, you have to be doing.
That's unheard of.
Exactly. And it's on video. Like, he has proof of it.
Yeah, you're pushing your body till you can end up in the hospital very easily. Push your body that limit, even if you are well trained.
Yeah. Like,
Jesus Christ.
And I relate so much to that. Why the fuck do you think I powerlift? Why do you think I love football and the explosiveness of it, and hockey, the explosiveness of it? Because it is, just like you said, it's a drug. That freaking anger, that that rage, like, it feels, there's something about it. It feels good, but we can't.
But only for certain people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's only for certain people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say they're a minority.
Oh.
Most people avoid conflict. They avoid yelling. They avoid violence. They don't want to be anywhere fucking near it.
And the intensity that comes out in the workouts, and I think there's a direct correlation with the people that go the furthest in fitness, in MMA, in sports, along that nature, where it's a single person and it's all about how intense you can go. and
Yeah.
how far you can push yourself. There's a direct correlation with people that have those that thirst for that anger, that the drug that
To
is
deal with it.
and
Yeah.
that
But
feeling.
just to get it out of your system. Yeah. Because the problem is, and what I was saying before, where I was just like, if someone has a negative thought, even if it is true, it's not serving them. What I learned, and this was a huge turning point for me in my mid-20s, I was like 25, 26 when I started turning things around. Anger is a fucking poison, right? It feels good, and it makes you feel powerful, and holy shit, does it energize you, but it's only ever a poison. And you can get away with it for years without suffering the consequences. This is one of the problems with the body. It's incredibly resilient in so many different ways that you can fuck up every single day for years and not really have a significant consequence until 15 years later and you have a heart attack. And it's like, why did I have a heart? 15 years later, you have cancer. It's like, why do I have cancer? 5 years later, it's like, why do I have diabetes? It's like, because you fucked up every single day. You had a chance, right? But you fucked up every day for years. And later on, there's a bill to pay. And people don't realize that.
Yeah.
And anger is one of those poisons. Internally, it will destroy you.
Because
right?
it's a stressor. It's not
Correct. It's a
right?
negative stressor.
It's a negative stressor. Yeah, because there's
Yeah.
the homeostasis, that battle with your body.
Eustress, distress.
You want this. You want stressors. That's why exercise is good. But the negative stressors,
Sure.
like anger, like resentment, like fear.
Yep. But that's the thing about anger. Exercise is a dose. It's a small dosage. So let's just say it's a 1 hour workout, and then you get to recover. We live sedentary lifestyles, which means you're fucking sitting, laying down, maybe standing up if you're lucky, right? Yeah. Anger is not a 1 hour thing. It goes on and on and on. And that's why it's so negative. If you could get all your anger out in 10 minutes, that's probably not a bad thing. It's out of your system. So actually, and this comes back to what we were talking about, where he was like ready to fight us in the chat, right? On Wednesday, what was it? So that was a week and a half ago. My phone has been dying randomly, okay? And I'll plug it in, and after 5 minutes, it'll charge just fine, and it comes back on, right? It'll have 100% charge and just die out of nowhere. So I've been doing a lot of virtual training, and it dies Wednesday morning, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to plug it in. It's not working. So I changed the cord, not working. Change the outlet, not working. Change the cord again, not working. I fucking snapped in a way that I haven't done. It's probably been years since I've just incoherent. I wasn't even yelling words. I yelled so loud, the muscles in my face hurt. I punched the wall. Thank God, like this. I slammed it, right? So I didn't punch through it. I'm throwing shit. I'm slamming doors. Thank God I have heavy weights and barbells and bands and all that shit. I went right into the backyard, didn't warm up, and just started cranking shit out. Now, here's the thing, though. I had a headache the rest of the day from like 2 hours of straight rage, right? Here's the cool part, though. Here's the cool part. And this is where reflection really matters, and where these conversations are important, that other people maybe have the chance to adopt reflecting, right? And get an idea of why it's so important. So Thursday morning, I wake up and I felt great. I'm like, holy shit, that was cathartic. I needed to get that shit out of my system, because when the quarantine happened, I thought I was dealing with it okay. On the surface, I haven't had any issues, right? There's shit boiling underneath the surface I wasn't even aware of. And it took one little thing with my phone, and I lost 3 sessions, right? So there's a financial loss, and I snapped, and I got it out of my system, and I'm like, holy shit, I feel so much better. I'm like, who knows how long that had been building for? Maybe it just wasn't even the quarantine. And it reminded me that being Zen isn't always the right choice, right? Sometimes you have to let the rage out of the system in a dosage, not something that you dwell on and you repeat over and over, but just fucking get out of your system in a small dose. And then it's like, oh, wow. It's like, holy shit, I feel normal again. It was a really important realization for me. Zen is good, but Zen's not always the right choice.
It's the screaming into the pillow. Like
Exactly.
these things are important. Having a punching bag is a great
Oh
way
yeah.
for people to get rage out. Just having,
Yep.
because then if you have if it's with a sparring partner, you run the risk of one hurting yourself, two hurting the other person.
Yep.
With the punching bag, you prepare correctly, right? Right, like you wrap up and you get after it, and then sometimes, like, have you ever? I know I've done this where I've gone so hard in a workout where I cried, like, and realizing like, oh shit, like this was so much more than a workout. Just
Yeah,
like how you
exactly. It was
reflected,
therapy.
just like how you reflected about the anger and being like, wow, like I need to get that out. Like
Yeah.
for me, it wasn't a punching bag. It wasn't a work. It wasn't a weightlifting workout. It was the first time I had run more than like a mile and a half, like ever
Mm-hmm.
in my life. I
Mm-hmm.
ran, it was 6.9 miles, right? I stopped it because
Holy shit.
yeah. And I purposely, I got to my driveway and I looked down at my app and it said 6.8 and I was like, no, I got to keep going. And so, but after that, like I felt this overwhelming like release, and like I was crying, and it came at a point in my life where there were, like, I'm not gonna lie, it was like the whole ex-girlfriend situation, and finally getting that release, and that's why I started running more and more, because I realized it wasn't about the workout. It was so much more mental than
Yep.
physical for the long distance running, because I know from my own experience and my knowledge, long distance running is not actually good for the body, but it's good for the mind.
It's
It's one thing, because from my perspective, all right, what marathon runner is healthy looking? None of them. But what sprint triathletes are, what
sure.
crossfitters are, what power lifters, what bodybuilders, what these types of people that have the healthy looking, like, I know bodybuilders aren't technically that healthy because of steroids and all this stuff.
Well, it depends on what type of bodybuilder we're talking about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, but the it was a mental health thing for
Yep.
me to do the long distance cardio. It wasn't a physical health thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, but the catch 22 was that I started running in December. So it wasn't, it was a bad choice for me, but I needed it, right? Like everything happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Supposed to. So now I just ordered actually running shoes, because now it's springtime and it's getting nice out. And I've been going on walks. I actually ordered running shoes and I ordered a longboard. I'm so happy.
Good for you. Cool.
Two things that I've wanted to really get back into, and now with this time, like,
Sure.
those are going to be meditations and mental health things, like, because I like walking around my neighborhood, but I don't, like, in college I only had a longboard. I didn't walk anywhere. I wasn't doing it, like, unless it was up to the bars, right? It was
Yeah.
a bunch of people, right? That's the only walking that I did, because, but in taking a look at that, it's because I was impatient. It's because I couldn't take sitting with myself.
That's good reflection.
That only happened through the process with the 12 steps and coming, not even directly the steps, but the process of living that sort of lifestyle where I now look at the things that I'm doing and try and point out the patterns of my behavior and what's leading to it. And just, that's just how I live my life now. Like, it might not be directly written on the pen when doing step work, or written on the pad with the pen when doing step work. But now I look at the things in my life that I'm doing on a regular basis, because that's the only way I can grow and make a change and move forward. Like, there's so many different things that it's all, like you said, it's all about patterns, and the patterns to your personality, and the personality becomes how you affect everybody else around you, right? So there's so many different levels to that, but you got to go back down to the root. What's the root cause?
Correct.
And that you're taking. And
what you said though is 100% true, and it's another issue I have with fitness, specifically culture in general. People don't ever grow. So once you've gone through those 12 steps, The goal is to become the steps, in which case you don't have to check in that methodical way, because you are it, because it happens throughout your daily experience, right? So the same thing happens with health and fitness all the time. People get into first grade understanding of fitness, second grade, third grade, and then they just stop. And it's like, the whole point of starting is to grow. The point of starting is not to start and stop, or certainly not to start and give up. That being said, at least they fucking started, because most people in the country don't even start, right? Or they start and stop. So at least they started. But to start and stagnate, that's a shitty situation. It's like, the point is to make progress. And as an example, Jim Rohn is initially, when I started searching out like positive influences and stuff like that, he was one of the first people I came across.
ROHN?
Yeah, I think it's ROHN, Jim Rohn. He's deceased, passed away. But
Really?
a brilliant guy, especially in how he presents his message, was particularly, we'll say, powerful, because it wasn't powerful, because he's not this big charismatic personality. He's not loud. He's not boisterous. He's not using sophisticated terminology and like highbrow shit. The way he simplified it, how easily he gets a message across, it's like, holy shit. So Jim Rohn would say, let's say you have a kid, they're in third grade, and it looks like they're going to fail third grade. And you as a parent, what do? You would put legitimate pressure on the kid to help them pass. And not just pressure on them, but do what you can to help them. Talk to the teacher. What do they need to work on, right? But there would be multiple factors coming together to make sure your child passes and graduates third grade, because that's the normal process. Third grade is not set up for you to fail. It's set up for you to pass. So if you're failing, or it looks like you're going to fail, something's gone terribly wrong. For some reason, when we graduate high school, college, graduate school, postdoc, whatever, people kind of forget about that idea, or they don't carry it over into other areas of their life that are incredibly meaningful. Your physical health, not your fitness, not your aesthetics, your health, your physical health, which ties into your mental health, which ties into your emotional health, which ties into your spiritual health, right? It's all connected. Absolutely. Through various layers. It's probably like a sphere of influence, right? It's probably, I don't think it stacks. And I don't even think it's like a pyramid. I think it's a sphere of influence. And it's different for everybody. For some people, mental is more important. For some, it's physical. For some, it's emotional. For some, it's spiritual. But all of them matter, right? And it's like people get stuck in third grade. It's like, oh, shit. And again, it's a cultural thing. It's only their fault a little bit, right? Because you're an adult. When you're an adult, what you said, super important. You have to take responsibility. Otherwise, you're a victim. You're a victim of your circumstance. You're a victim of your environment. You're a victim of your spouse. You're a victim of your family members. You're a victim of your coworkers. That's a nightmare. That's a living hell to be a victim. Sometimes a victim of circumstance is a good circumstance, but you didn't control it, which means you can't repeat it. That's a problem. It was a fluke. You got lucky, man. Fortune and luck are not the same thing. Fortune is something you make, right? You can put yourself in better situations. Dumb luck, lucky, that's what I call lucky. Lucky's dumb luck, right? Fortune is something that you've constantly done things to set yourself up for success, and things will come into your life, opportunities that you can accept or turn down. Something like this, right? Like if I was a complete like bonehead, just like meathead trainer, maybe you wouldn't ask me on here, maybe you would have. Our conversation would certainly be different, but the opportunities that I've had personally within the industry would not have been the same at all. The people that would have wanted to train with me would not have been the same at all. And it's because I decided to grow beyond third grade. And when I got to middle school, like intellectually, like professionally, I didn't stop at middle school. I'm probably somewhere in like high school, college-ish, right? But here's the thing. Just so as an analogy, I guess it would have to stop, like professional growth as a school analogy, you would have to stop at like graduate school. But even then, it never stops, right? If you're interested in professional growth, it never ends. There is no last grade. And it doesn't mean you have to blow through. It's like, oh, I did third grade in 2 weeks. It's like, well, what did you learn from it?
Yeah.
right? And I know we're sidetracking a lot here, but I have this huge issue with people who devour books to say that they read books. And I'm like, what did you get from it? So I've had clients, and this is unfortunate for them. I've had clients who introduced me to really good books. And when I read it, it was so profound and life-changing and altering in how I thought about stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. That is in the context that I know them, which I know them well because I've been training for years, doesn't seem like they apply any of that stuff to themselves, not in a beneficial way. How fucking terrible is that, right? Like you helped me immensely, and those books led to other books, and they led to other resources. Holy fuck, those people helped me grow. They didn't do it for themselves at all. How fucking terrible is that?
That is such a good point, because there's been 3 books in my life that I can say changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
I only finished reading one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But the impact that the 2 books, Think and Grow Rich and The Practicing Mind, have had, I might not have finished them, but they've had such an impact on my life.
Who says you have to finish it?
Exactly. Like, did I finish them? Technically, I did not read all the pages. Did I get something out of them that made a huge impact on my life and changed my life to where I am someone who really tries to plan as much as possible and figure out the best ways to not only practice, but to reflect on them and to make a change in my life?
Correct.
Those
Correct.
have that. The other book that made a huge impact on my life that I did actually finish was a 99-page book called The Greatest Salesman in the World, and it got 10 principles just to live your life by, and it's a fictional story about the greatest salesman in the world, and has sales.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But it does, right? Like, it's a story about the greatest salesman in the world, but it's about principles that he goes by and why because in sales, you don't sell yourself, or you don't sell the product, you're selling yourself. And
correct.
So for him, it's about self-reflection and how he carries himself. And that's why the sales happen. Right.
Yep.
So,
yep.
I wanna, there's 2 points
with the book though. What you said is immensely important. You got from the book, you didn't even get through the book because you didn't finish it, but who gives a shit about getting through stuff if you don't get from it? And here's a concept that applies to everything in life. People get through the day. They get through the week, which means the next day is the same as the last. The next week is the same as the last, right? It's this whole hindsight, foresight thing. Show me your past, I'll show you your future, especially the immediate, right? It's so easy. Once you've been given these concepts and these ideas of developing yourself and finding resources and having those positive influences, it's so much easier to get from the day. Where it's like, and Gary, I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk was the first person I heard say this, and I really agree with it. I thought it was an important point. He's like, I feel really bad for the people who live for the weekend. Mm-hmm. I'm like, fuck yeah. I mean, that's why I chose personal training, and it morphed into nutrition and, like holistic health coaching. And now it's massage therapy. And it's because I'm out there trying to help people, because this is something that I'm passionate about. It's my purpose. It's purpose driven, and I'm passionate about it. Every fucking day, for the most part, I'm engaged in what I'm doing. I love what I do. It wasn't always like that. I realized that I wanted to help people. I thought I wanted to make money, right? So I was fucked up just like everybody else. I thought the goal of getting a job was making money. Mm-hmm. And I realized from working with people who had a lot of money that weren't happy, I was like, something's wrong here. Like, I don't understand what it is. I don't understand why they're not happy, but something's wrong here. And through all these different avenues, I found it's finding a sense of purpose, which is community, right? Helping others, being the rising tide. Passion is bred from purpose. You can't be passionate every single day unless you're either an anomaly or you're on drugs all the time.
I was going to say,
or one of those things. Yeah, exactly. But passion comes and goes. I'll take my Monday through Saturday, because I work 6 days a week. over the vast majority of the population's weekends. I'll take any normal week of mine over a great week for someone else because I've built this to be what it is. So it's not just like your perspective, like, oh, like look at how he's doing with the client. Like they're engaged, like they're laughing, they're having fun. The person's learning. He looks like he's enjoying himself. Like that. That's superficial. What matters is all the shit that came before that.
Mm-hmm.
A decade plus that this was built on, which gives this value, which is why I wouldn't trade it for anything, right? My current life has value because of all the shit that I've done and all the work that I've put into it and how much I've turned it around. And my day-to-day is good. I don't have to live for the weekend because every day is good, but it's a thought process. So it's not just a circumstance. It's not just a superficial thing. Anyone can do it with most situations. If you choose something that you hate and you spend all your time hating it, it's going to be really hard to turn it around and love it. That's going to be tough to do, right? If you choose something that you're indifferent or you like it and you don't like it, or sometimes probably you just need a change in how you view things. You just need a change in your thought process. You need to reflect. You need to better understand yourself, and your situation will probably be a hell of a lot better. Your job won't change. Your coworkers won't change, but because you changed inside, now your job is much better and you don't have to live for the weekend anymore. Every day is good, right? That's this has been my genesis, right? And it's been culminating, and it continues to culminate because you reap what you sow. But if you sow every week, there's always something to reap. There's always reaping. So it's like, I don't even know when I'm sowing and reaping because it's all happening naturally but it didn't start out like that. Holy shit. It did not start out like that, right? It's something that grew over time. Let me just refill this again.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, this is perfect. I'm going to take it too.
Okay, cool. I'm going to stretch.
Whew. So while
Bro, we're done. We got enough material already.
Dude, right?
Yeah.
I'm so happy. I've been sitting on, because I'm on my subwoofer, right? Which is
Yeah.
not soft. So I've been sitting on low on it. But I went out there and my new thick
there you go.
yoga mat
Nice.
came. It's actually a sleeping pad for camping. I got it because it's red. That's my color.
Red's your thing. Yep.
And
we know it.
And but like, why couldn't I use a sleeping pad that's extra thick as my yoga mat? You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
It's the same material.
Yeah.
And it came up when I typed in red yoga mat, right? So like,
that's funny. Yeah.
Into oh, wow, that's great. It's an inch thick of
nice.
So, and I have two other. So like, I'll put the two yoga mats underneath, and I'll be all cushiony, like when I do my yoga. But all right. So, first, I want to start off by thanking you so much, Matt Z, the Specialized Generalist, for coming on to my podcast. This is for yourself. I don't know whatever episode that it's going to be up as, but I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Same. This is my first podcast.
Yeah, this is great.
This is cool.
This is great, man. I'm happy I could pop your cherry. You know, we're talking about it's my favorite. So it's, but to kind of let everybody know, like, the reason why I reached out to you in the first place is because of how much I respect you, with the knowledge that I've come to know that you have for not just health and fitness, but for the way you've lived your life, and just the conversation we've just had, and on how much and the stuff that you've gone through. Like, I already respected you and how you lived your life and all, but to now know like some of the things that you've gone through that have made you into the person that you are today. Correct. But that was incredible to learn and stuff. And
thank you.
So I want you to kind of just let everybody know, like, the types of, we talked a little bit about your certifications and stuff, and I just so people know, like, your credentials type of
yeah,
thing.
Sure.
Could you kind of just give like a general overview of yourself?
Sure. So I started training in fall of '07. I graduated with a health and exercise science degree. It was health promotion and fitness management, which is basically like a generalist kind of degree going into the fitness field. It doesn't specialize you for anything. First job was doing basically 50-50 sports performance and personal training. It was a very eye-opening experience at both ends. When I was in college, I got my NSCA CPT. February of '08, I got my CSCS. Kind of took a break as far as education is concerned. I was making no money initially. I think my first full year in training, I made like $18,000 or something like that. Obviously living at home. I think my second year I made like $24,000. I wasn't at a gym, I was at a studio. So they give us clients. You're not selling anything. You're not going around. There are no members. There's only people that come in to train for the most part. And then I was doing a lot of, watching a lot of YouTube University, right? I didn't know much experientially of training a lot of people, which it does help to have. And we'll come back to this at some point, not 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours, 30,000 hours. Like that's where in my opinion, the real shit happens, at least for me and probably for most other normal people, but we'll come back to that later or maybe on a different podcast. Yeah. And then once I started getting busier, moved to a different studio, making more money, I went to a Perform Better conference and holy shit, was that amazing. Meeting other fitness professionals who were passionate about something, meeting some of these people who I'd been on their email list, reading their articles, watching their videos. I think that was 2011. It was in Rhode Island. So anyone who's like a fitness nerd will know these names. Stuart McGill, who's basically the godfather of spine biomechanics, and Thomas Myers, who's like the godfather of fascial health and fitness and all that stuff. I saw when they met each other, I think it was Myers just got done presenting, McGill was coming up, and it was like a really cool moment. Bought a ton of books, spent a lot of time initially in my career developing more of like a sports performance kind of mentality and understanding performance. But at some point you realize if you're chasing performance in one sport or in many sports, you have to learn how to prevent injuries because they run rampant, right? Which means you have to know corrective exercise, not physical therapy per se, but mechanisms of injury, just like basic shit to understand what's going on. So that's how I got into like fascia stuff and like the spine and the lower back and the hip and the shoulder and learning about joint by joint approach and Gray Cook's movement. At that one Perform Better, I got Stuart McGill's book, Thomas Myers' book, Gray Cook's book. I got a Dan John book. Like I fucking dominated. I cleaned up, right? Mm-hmm. And all those things served as catalyst to learn more, right? Each one springboarded into something else. And being in that environment, right? Having that community, meeting people, and not just socializing, but connecting, right? And sharing our stories kind of gave me an itch that I needed to scratch by going out and doing certifications. So the timeline, who knows? I'm just going to ramble stuff off. I got into like circus arts, ninja warrior, movement culture for a couple years where I was like competing and stuff, but the training influences me. So I did 2 workshops with Ido Portal method. I did 2 workshops and a 5-day intensive with Fighting Monkey practice, Rafe Keeley's Evolve Move Play. I've done therapeutic workshops, DNS, NKT, Anatomy in Motion, Perry Nicholson, Immaculate Dissection. I've done 2 workshops with them. Training for warriors, that's not therapeutic, but I'm just spitting stuff out. I did Chris Duffin when he only had one workshop, I think. It was early on. I just graduated from a 1-year massage therapy program, precision nutrition. Oh, I just did a Altus sprint certification. Holy fuck, was that amazing. It was so detailed. They did such a good job with their curriculum of making it both broad and deep. What an inspiration. I'm like, that's the goal, right? That's the goal. So I'm all over the place because my job, I'm not, as you said, the specialized generalist. I'm a generalist who goes around specializing, which means I don't have any one particular type of clientele I work with. And my overarching goal is to help people. So when something comes up where we're trying something, it's not working, that's unacceptable to me. I have to go out and find resources to help them because I know other people have done it and I know other people are teaching about it, right? So I already have like a dozen plus things on my radar. Unfortunately, the quarantine screwed everything up, right? I already knew what I was doing this entire year, and I had an idea of what I was going to do next year. I'm not married to any of them, but there are a lot of things therapeutically and performance-wise that I still don't know and I still want to learn about, right? And it's awesome because you get to meet a bunch of cool, like-minded professionals and individuals. So I have like, I don't know, it's a dozen, 15 certifications, at least as many workshops, the massage therapy, and a degree. Sorry for word vomiting. That was a lot of stuff.
That's awesome.
It's a lot, whatever.
So I'm happy that you did that, because right after I say I have so much respect for the knowledge and stuff that you spit off how you have so mmany certifications and all this stuff that you're not even sure how many.
Oh,
and
parkour. I forgot about that. I have a parkour certification.
So this is incredible. The amount of, pieces of paper that you've been able to, and we talked about it before, how you didn't stop learning about those things just because you got the pieces of paper, right? Because the knowledge the knowledge doesn't just stick, and the knowledge doesn't, just because you get a certification doesn't mean that field doesn't keep going.
Correct.
Well, so like you need to keep, like, we always learn more about nutrition. We always learn more about fitness. We always learn more about injury prevention. We always learn more about different training styles and what works best for what. And one of the things that you talked about before we got started was the different, and the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because it did something. It turned something in my brain. And you mentioned fortune and luck, but in reality, you took it a step further and you put an adjective in front of each one: dumb luck and good fortune.
Yeah.
Right? Two different things. That what dumb luck is stuff that just happens, right? It's happenstance, and good fortune is stuff that, because of a series of things that you do in your life, you're put into a position where you have an opportunity. That's good fortune, right?
Correct.
And it's funny because I've believed in my own past, and hearing different quotes and stuff, that luck is just opportunity, or no, it's skill met with opportunity. But you took it to a different, you separated it, where you made it now, okay, well, luck is actually dumb luck. But what I'm talking about luck, I'm actually talking about good fortune. The way that it's skill met with opportunity, right? That's the good fortune part. That's not dumb luck. So my definition of dumb luck, or my definition of luck, was actually parallel more to your definition of good fortune.
Yeah.
Versus the definition of luck. So that's why I wanted to bring this up, because it turned some wheels in my head.
We're going to sidetrack, because this has nothing to do with fitness, but it does have to do with mental health and social health, right?
Which has everything.
So here's cool, where I said something. You have a different idea of what the word means, which means you could disagree with me, but you didn't. You explained your own thought process as a rebuttal. So instead of arguing over the meaning of luck and dumb luck, we had like a debate where now I understand. So henceforth, when you say luck, I know what you're saying, because if you say luck, I'm thinking something completely different, right? So this is how conversations should operate, where one person tries to understand what the other person's saying, or I guess it depends on what the give and take is, the feedback. If there's a miscommunication, someone has to be the adult and explain what they're saying, and then the other person has to be willing to receive and understand, and then they can come to an agreement of the conversation and how those words are being used. They might still use them their own individual ways, but at least they understand what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a cool moment. That's very mature of you. Holy shit, we don't see that very often at all. Not on social media, not on thread messages for
Yeah.
posts and stuff like that. My God.
There's so many.
Kudos, sir. Kudos.
Dude, there's so many. And to take that a step further, that is something that we talked about before of how I wasn't always like that, right?
Sure.
I wasn't always of the mindset of I might be right, but you also might be right.
Mm-hmm.
It was always there was the I'm right, you're wrong mindset, right? And
yeah. Wow.
Which happens a lot because no matter what, I talked about this on my last podcast. Even if you don't follow religion, you're religious about something, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
That dogmatic mindset, and when it comes to so many things in the health, so look, me and you are someone who sees so many different, like the umbrella of health and fitness.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different thought processes and schools of thinking. Like just the fact that there's that many certifications for you to be able to get.
Oh, so
right?
many.
Instead of just this is a personal training certification and that's everything.
Yeah.
Right? So when it comes to yours and my mindset of there's so many different things to learn, let's learn about all of it and expand my knowledge. Whereas some people are like, this is the only way to train, this is the right way, or this is the only way to eat, this is the right way to eat, this is the only way to do this, X equals X.
It's a big problem.
X cannot equal Y ever. There's no give and take to it.
So that's a multifaceted issue. And I see that when I go into different arenas, whether it's educational, learning something that's therapeutic, learning something that's performance, learning something that is health, learning something that is maybe psychology oriented. There's always zealots, and there's always people that think that way is the best way. And then they'll talk shit about other methods and other systems. And I'm like, I don't even argue with them because you will not win an argument with a zealot, right? Mm-hmm. There was something else. Oh, shit. You said so many things. Oh, boy. I just lost it. I think we've been talking too long already, even though it just started.
Dude, the simple fact that there's so many different schools of thought.
I'm sorry. The dogma of the zero-sum game. In order for you to be correct, I have to be wrong. Mm-hmm. So that's a very immature, childlike way of understanding how the world operates, mm-hmm. right? And if you're an adult, it's at least partially your fault because you're an adult. You have to take responsibility. Mm-hmm. But society at large can be blamed. The culture can be blamed because you were never taught a better way. And if it wasn't, it may have been offered up to you, but it wasn't taught to you and explained to you, so you didn't adopt it. So you continue operating like a child. You get older every year, right? Doesn't mean you grow. Yeah. You get older every year, but it doesn't mean you grow. So this is a huge issue where people adopt a zero-sum game. It's the law of the jungle, but it's the intellectual version of it. In order for me to have, you have to have not. I have to take from you. So that's like, and this happens in fitness because there's a lot of people that are drawn to it, especially extreme fitness, have extreme personalities, especially their physicality, right? They like this domination, the domineering, the alpha aspect. But here's the problem. And obviously there are outliers to this, right? Nothing is absolute. Mm-hmm. A lot of those people are human animals. They're animal alphas. They're not human beings, right? So think about this. Human being. There is no elephant being. There is no cat being. There is no dog being. There is no cow being. We just call them cats, elephants, dogs, and cows, right? Humans are interesting. We're animals just like them. We're mammals just like them. We have the opportunity to transcend that, to be more than an animal. A zero-sum thought process is the process of an animal. It's a child, right? A child is an animal just because they haven't been educated, right? So this comes back to, if you're an adult, you have to take responsibility, but it's also society's fault because if society didn't educate you, they didn't set you up with the proper tools to be more than an animal, right? And this happens in fitness too. So that idea encapsulates a lot of social issues and a lot of the people on the bookends, right? The radical left, or for you, I guess this would be right, and the radical right. They operate off of that zero sum. Mm-hmm. in whatever situations, right? Very few people are radical about everything. There's a specific arena, an individual is radical in that arena. They have a childlike thought process in that arena, and they're not able to see beyond it. And just coming back to the religion thing, so I've spent a lot of time thinking about this stuff. Again, the goal is to help people. So you have to think deeply, you have to think broadly, you have to apply and reflect and reapply and, you know, do the best you can. I think with religion, the toxic aspects of religion is not bad inherently. How it's used and how it's manipulated can be bad, right? There's a lot of, oh my God, there's so much good stuff about religion and a lot of great people who are religious. But I think the people who get wrapped up in the zealotry and the dogma, it all comes back to ego, right? It's ego sparing. And that's kind of what the animal thing is, right? So if, peel back the layers of humanity. We're an animal, survive, like without all the culture and the amazing technology we have. Go back 1,000 years. Bro, if you read about history, and not just European history, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, holy fuck, we're disgusting. We're animals. Yeah. We're really smart animals who came up with terrible ways of hurting each other, but we're animals. We're all operating like animals, right? I forget what my point is right there. I sidetracked too much. I went too deep into that hole right there. But ultimately, the goal is to transcend that, right? The religion thing. It's ego. So ego has to exist in the animal kingdom. Otherwise, you're going to die. Everything else will kill you. Everything else will take advantage of you, right? Because that's how, I mean, nature's harsh, man. It's beautiful, but it's also harsh. This is the contradiction of life. I know we're getting super deep and it's like philosophical, but this is my shit and this is what I do, right? Yeah. This is what I like. Mm-hmm. So ego has to be there just from a defense mechanism to protect you in the wild. Now, our current culture is not the wild, but it's our wild. I mean, human society is pretty wild. It's not the wild, but it's our wild, right?
You get canceled at any moment right now.
Well, exactly. It's still complex. It's still complicated. It's still dangerous in different ways. Maybe not life or death dangerous like being out in the wild was thousands of years ago, right? But it's still our wild. And the laws of the jungle, for whatever reason, have been perpetuated by the people in power. And I think, not to get too conspiracy theory, but it does put people in a victim mentality, right? Where they never transcend beyond the zero-sum game, the human alpha, the might makes right. These are all ideas that exist and they work because of our animal nature. Our job, not just as professionals in the allied health field, but really anyone who's trying to make a difference and just fucking move the dial in the right direction. I don't care what field you're in. Just move the dial in the right direction, just one tick. It's important to try to transcend those animal instincts, right? And this is where meditation, reflection, religion, spirituality come into play. But here's the cool part. This is where it comes back to health, fitness, and exercise and all that stuff. If your nutrition is garbage, good luck controlling your emotions. If you're constantly sleep deprived, good luck controlling your emotions. If you're constantly sleep deprived, good luck focusing.
Yeah.
If you're constantly over-exercising and your body's always in pain, good luck calming down so you can find God, right? Or so you can meditate and calm your mind. And then if those things are happening, you eat like shit, your internal biochemistry and physiology is a nightmare, right? You're sleep deprived. You either don't move at all, which is a huge issue, right? Because movement is medicine. That's how you lubricate your joints and your tissues and have smooth sliding surfaces and pump fluid, and blood is what carries nutrients and blah, blah, blah. Or you exercise way too much and you destroy your body, right? So I just summed up a normal American, right? More or less. Good luck transcending the animal inside, because we're all animals. We have the coolest opportunity, at least as far as we know in the history of the planet. Who the fuck knows how much there was before? I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. I don't know. But we have a really cool opportunity to transcend it. Technology, I'm talking to you right now, this is an amazing wonder. The fact that we got this far. However, technology has outpaced our personal development. And look what's happened. Look what happened when YouTube first got popular and people would have fights on threads, right? It exposed our darker side and the fact that there is very little mental, emotional, spiritual, personal development that's happening. That it hasn't coincided with technology. Technology shot up and we're still the same stupid fucking animals that haven't become human beings yet. And again, well, actually, I'm going to go into that because I just insulted people. So,
well,
I know we're sidetracking, but
the last podcast that I did, the quote that Sean had brought up was the George Carlin quote of 50% of the people are stupid and the other 50% of the people are even more stupid, or something like that. It's something like that.
It's true though, because we're all dumb and we all have moments of intelligence, sometimes moments of brilliance, and sometimes moments of absolute stupidity. But we're all dumb in many different ways. So let's actually talk about that a little bit, because I don't want that to come across as being judgmental. Because it's true. So there's different ways to be dumb. You cannot know, right? Which means someone hasn't informed you. Well, that's not so bad. Someone can tell you and educate you and teach you. So, but there's so much things I don't know about. I could go into so many different jobs and arenas and I would be an idiot because I don't know, right? But it's not derogatory. It's the circumstance. The second one would be misinformed. So you've learned something that's either mostly incorrect. And if it's partially incorrect, that's fine. Like it's all relative and circumstantial. But if it's mostly incorrect and you're not willing to relearn, that's a problem. That's a worse kind of dumb, right? And then there's the worst one of all. There's ego dumb, where it's, I don't give a fuck what you're saying. I'm right. It doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong. I'm right. That's the worst kind of dumb. And we see that a lot. That's not the dumb that I was just referencing when I said transcending being a fucking moron, right? Being an idiot. Because we're all dumb in many different ways. You have to accept that and then realize you're also smart in many different ways. You have to accept that. It's another contradiction. This is what life is. Life is full of contradictions. Life is full of paradoxes. If you get caught up on a single idea, you're not understanding how things operate, because this idea is only partially correct. There's at least one other side to it. There's at least another side to the coin, or it might be a cube. There might be many sides to it, right? So this is where, again, coming back to the dogma, the zealotry, you don't want to get hyper focused on one area because you're going to miss everything else around it, and you're not going to understand it. Not in a way that's meaningful, not in a way that's productive, not in a way that helps other people. You're going to end up being, especially if you rise to prominence in whatever regard, in your community, in your job, in the world, I don't know, you're probably going to operate, might makes right. You're a human animal alpha. You're not a human being. Human being, or let's say human being alpha, whatever. I guess well, let's go animal alpha and human alpha, right? So animal alpha is the might makes right, zero-sum game. We need to get away from that or go beyond that. The human alpha is a rising tide. When I benefit, you benefit. When you benefit, other people benefit, right? That's the way things should operate. That's the way fitness should operate. That's the way the allied health field should operate. That's not our current cultural situation. There are a lot of bastions out there where people, as individuals, as groups, as organizations, are trying to change that. So at least we're headed in the right direction. We got a lot of good shit going on, but man, is progress slow moving. And there needs to be more conversations that help people grow beyond that zero-sum game, that third grade understanding of the world. Grow beyond being a child. Grow beyond being the animal, ego-driven understanding of yourself and your surroundings, right? And it ain't easy. It's a hard process. That's the whole point, though. Anything worthwhile has difficulty built into it and time, right? So if you look at anything, fitness is easy. It's what we know, right? You and I. And it's a great microcosm for being successful in life. No one can give you your double body weight deadlift, your your body weight bench squat, your 3.5 or bench squat, Jesus Christ, bench press, Jesus Christ, I just said bench squat. We've been talking too long. I've never talked this long. So this is, my brain's starting to glitch a little bit right now. No one can give you your fastest mile at all time. You have to earn that shit. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, and it's going to take time. There's going to be bumps on the road. You have to persevere. And if you give up, everything's gone. That's the way life operates. When you accomplish something, it's meaningful, not because you accomplished it, not because it's like, oh man, I just ran a sub 6 mile, right? But let's say your first day you run a sub 6 mile. Who gives a fuck? It was your first day. That was easy for you.
Yeah.
Right? You can brag about it, but what the hell is that? That's not meaningful. That's not purposeful. But if it took you a year and you went from a 9:30 to a 5:59 because of the effort, the process, and the time that went into it, it now has meaning. And it might not mean shit to anybody else because there's people out there running sub 4s, right? So at the end of the day, it's not shit, but it's the best you've ever done, which means it matters immensely. And you have to celebrate your victories.
It's the difference. No, it's the difference between someone who their first time running the 6-minute mile versus someone who took a year to get there. It's they both had this. They both did the same thing, right?
Yep.
But the rate of perceived exertion, the RPE that this person has on their first time, that means that if they put in that same amount of time that person did to get to the 6, they'll probably get to a 5 or a sub.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So but one thing that I really liked that you talked about was the differences of the dumb person, right? And how
different
it can
kinds of dumb, yeah.
in different ways. And one of my favorite quotes that I've heard, pretty recently was Hunter S. Thompson talks about how fear is just another word for ignorance. Now,
yes, that's a great quote. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to be mulling that over. That's good.
Hunter S. Thompson, brilliant.
Say it again. Fear is
just another word for ignorance.
Yeah. It's true. That's true. Holy shit. That's good.
You take all these schools of thought, and the person who is misinformed is usually the person who fears that's the racist, right? They're misinformed about a certain race is a certain way, and that's why they should hate them. So how do we get that person from racist to understanding is with education.
Correct.
That's the only way to do it. And there's a guy who I really wish I could remember his name. I'll put it in the comments section.
There you go.
When I after this and I go and I look it up and stuff, but he's actually made he's through education and sitting down and talking with and building a relationship. He's a black guy, a musician that is converted or has through educating multiple, like I'm talking over 100 people in the KKK.
What?
To give up their robes and to no longer be, all through education, all through being able to.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. And it's
that's an undertaking.
And
what the hell? Wow. Good for him.
A beautiful story of someone who could have easily just been like, I'm not going to go and perform at that bar that is KKK, even though I'm the only black person of my band. And then taking it a step further, and that the person in the KKK coming and talking to them and saying, I've never had a beer with a black person before. I've never had, I've never seen a black person play like that. I forget who the musician, like the only person, I've never seen a black person play like this white musician. And then the black guy being like, well, that white musician actually learned from this black musician. And he's like, no way, that's impossible. And he realizes he's in the KKK. But it opened the door for their conversation. And then they kept in touch and kept in touch and kept in touch. And eventually he gave up his robes and he actually gave the robes to the musician, the black musician that and he's got like all these different people that have given robes and I think they're called robes, right? Or whatever. But
I don't know.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? The KKK hood and freaking.
But yeah, but that's remarkable story. Not just the guy who got other people to change their mind, but it's the people who actually change their mind. That's also remarkable, because that is a radical thought process, right? To be racist to that extent.
Yeah.
Everybody makes judgments. Everybody, right? Everybody's not racist in an extreme sense, but we all pass judgments based on what we know about something.
Yeah.
Someone who's willing to change, that's remarkable. And the guy who knows how he went about it, but his ability to help other people see a different perspective, that's a gift. That is an absolute gift.
What makes me like emotional about it is that the door was opened through music, because there's so much to be said. So many people talk about music being the universal language, right? Like, it doesn't need to be words in a single song.
Correct.
Everybody in the world to feel an emotion from the song, because all sound is vibrations, and we all feel the vibrations. And then, you know, to get all philosophical and deeper, like we're all made of a bunch of atoms, and atoms are energy, and the electrons and protons flying around, and well, just the electrons flying around, you know. That's why meditation had such a profound impact on me, because it was the first time I laid down and had my meditative experience with, it was a yoga class, followed by laying down and meditating, and the yoga teacher had a gong. And it was the first time that I had ever sat with myself, laid there quietly, and felt the vibrations through my body. I literally came out of that experience high, like so high on life, like feeling the tingle in my body, because for the first time, all the electrons of the atoms of my body were all going now in a smooth, because they were all in the same.
They were operating differently.
Yeah. So my entire body, like I could feel the aura coming off of, like I felt like my arm was this big instead of this big, you know, like I could feel the energy coursing.
The energy,
And it was the first time that I was okay with being with myself. And that's why it was such a impactful thing, to where 5.5 years later, meditation happens at like, not like there's a lot of things that are meditative for me now, right? Like exercise.
Sure. So many things can be meditation.
Yeah. Walking, biking, anything, any sort of thing where it takes me out of my head.
Yeah, exactly. I have something right here. I paint little figurines. If you've ever painted something this small, it is very meditative, because you have to slow your mind down, because if you rush and make a mistake, now you have to go back over that again, right? And it takes you you have to focus so much that it takes you away from your neuroses, and it takes you away from your fears, and it takes so many things. Anything that engages you is a meditation.
Yeah.
Right? Anything that engages you is a meditation. Gets your mind off of the bullshit, basically, that you create yourself, which is mostly what happens. People create their own bullshit, or the bullshit that the world creates for you, like quarantine. Like, I didn't create quarantine, like it happened, but it's something I got to deal with now. Everyone's got to deal with it.
It's such an important part of my weekly, you know, thing, to not just every day do something that is something that takes my focus and becomes a meditation, but to actually lay down and put on like a Tibetan bowl, a crystal bowl, a chakra meditation. Like, it had such a life-changing, profound impact on me that first time, that it's a drug.
You found something.
I found something that is a healthy escape that helps me to not just expand my mind, but to get away from, like you said, the fears, the stuff that holds me back.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So instead of it provides that like other way, and also can sometimes straight up break through that, so that I realize that there isn't, that's a made up, that I realized that I made that barrier and that fear, and that my own ignorance of what that is about, like just to take the literal translation from this, the original fear of COVID-19, right? I don't know what it can do. All I've heard is that it's killing a bunch of people. And on top of that, I have asthma. So now I'm like, oh shit, if I get it, I'm dead. But that is an unrealistic view of it. Was a fear that was
unfounded
from a lack of information about the disease. They're not disease, the virus, right? But the more I listen to real, actual doctors, scientists, people studying, getting the vaccine, doing all this stuff, the more I listened to them, the more the fear came down. But the fear was because of my ignorance of like, I still don't know a lot about it, right? But I now have the knowledge that I'm doing all the other things that are necessary for me to get through what either
for your health.
Yeah, I'm doing all the other things necessary, like even going as far as changing my diet, because asthma is actually an autoimmune response. It's not actually a condition of it's not a disease of the body. It is a condition that is a result of diet, stress.
Correct.
So what do I got to do? Meditate, eat right, exercise, all the other things. Sleep.
Recover. You got to recover.
There's all those other things. And where the fear went down is that I am doing all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to start with what you just said and then backtrack. I had asthma my entire life. I remember being a kid, being a goalkeeper, like little, 5, 6, 7 years old, and it's cold out, and breathing into my hands because it warmed up the air. When we found out I had asthma, I think in like middle school and high school, I don't remember what happened first. I got an inhaler and a medication. I had a daily inhaler. I had a daily medication. I had an inhaler before activity and one in case I had an asthma attack. Okay. So I also had allergies too, really bad allergies. And I had really bad depression and anxiety that manifested themselves as constant anger, right? So fast forward to about 25, 26, started changing nutrition, started reading about psychology and self-help and understanding myself, started sleeping more, stopped beating myself up with exercise. Guess what? Don't have asthma anymore. Barely have allergies. I used to be lactose intolerant. Here's something cool. I remember I was probably like 28, 29 when I had pizza. I was out with my friends. It was a buddy's bachelorette party. And we had pizza after the bar. And I was like, oh man, I'm probably going to be hurting. What's up? Bachelor party. Yeah, my bad. Bachelor party. Yeah.
I was like,
party. I wish I was going to bachelor party. Shit.
Sorry.
Tells you where my mind is. I'm in quarantine. Shit. My brain reformed that. They were like, you want to be in a bachelorette party.
You want to go to a bachelorette party.
So I had a couple slices of pizza and nothing happened. And I'm like, okay. A couple days later, I had some cheese. Nothing happened. The big test was I had a milkshake. Nothing happened. So I'm like, holy shit, I'm not lactose intolerant anymore. I took lactate pills anytime I had milk, right? And sometimes they worked. Sometimes they didn't work. It's a hit or miss. And I remember talking to some medical professionals, and they were like, that's impossible. If you're lactose intolerant, you're always lactose intolerant. I later came to find that the villi of your intestines at the bottom house lactose, lactase, which is the enzyme to break down lactose, which is the sugar, right? It houses lactase. A terrible diet, which is what I had, destroys the villi. Constant stress, which I had, anxiety, depression, manifesting as anger, destroy the villi. Lack of sleep, which I had, doesn't allow them to fully recover. My body had the ability to produce lactase, but I never had it in my system because my system was a fucking mess. And then all of a sudden, it's like, holy shit, I'm not lactose intolerant. I just had a really bad diet, really bad lifestyle, right? Bad thought process. Don't have asthma anymore. The past couple of years, I've been one of the top tower racers, not bragging, but whatever. One of the top tower racers in the country for my age group. So my top race last year, I averaged 150 stairs a minute for 8 minutes and 15 seconds. Right? You ever run 1,200 plus stairs for 8 minutes nonstop?
Holy shit.
Not only that, I was rowing 646 in 2 of my indoor rowing races, one of the hardest things you can do for your lungs. I run the 400-meter dash for track and field. I'm competitive in my age group for obstacle course racing. As a 33 to 36-year-old, when I did a lot of racing, still doing a lot of racing, no asthma. Had asthma my whole life, don't have asthma now because I did the shit that you were talking about, change all that stuff, in which case asthma is not, for most people, it's probably not a life sentence. It's a result of issues with your lifestyle, nutrition, thought processes, lack of exercise, movement, whatever. Your environmental stressors can irritate that stuff, right? So I'm all with you on that.
And
because I lived through that. No more asthma, barely any allergies. Used to have allergies every fucking season, man.
mm-hmm.
Barely any allergies and no more lactose intolerance.
So to all the things that you just said there, so the allergies, I have noticed, one, that my seasonal allergies are almost non-existent. Like sometimes, pollen and stuff might get to me. I don't really know what maybe that's just the fact of inhaling dust and being like, my body's like, oh, you got to sneeze this stuff out.
Well, exactly.
That's different than having allergies. But something that has really changed over the past 5 years, really over the past 3 years, of when my diet has gotten really, really good. I used to be like deathly allergic to cats and dogs. Along with the change in my diet and the commitment to how much I've been powerlifting and the way I'm exercising and all the stuff that I'm doing, I also changed the way that my brain works in the way I talk, because I realized I had heard from all the self-help type stuff, anything that you say after I am is true. This is my belief. So
yeah.
When
no, that's good.
I say I am deathly allergic to cats and dogs, that's
reinforce it.
That's reinforcing it in my brain. Yep. So I went from, I got a lot more healthy overall, and I changed. The last thing was changing my mindset. I'm not allergic to cats and dogs. I love dogs so much. I love playing with them. Cats can fucking kill you in a heart. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they at any split second, they can
give
you a 10-pound cat. Or, I don't know how much cats weigh. But like a cat can be so quick and claw your eye out without you being able to react and block.
They're not good pack animals.
Right. But just that changing of the mindset, also being cautious in the fact where, like, I know after I'm messing around with a dog and a cat, I'm not going to rub my face in it. Right.
Yeah. Be smart about it.
And also, like, I'm playing with a cat, messing with a cat, wash my hands after. Right. Instead of now touching my eyes, because that's when exactly. the itchy crazy eye. And that might not even have always been because of the allergy to the cat or dog, right? That might just have been because cats and dogs fucking run around and roll around outside.
And also,
all the dirt and all the stuff. So it could have been a whole, but what I'm saying is, like, I took a holistic approach to, I don't want to be allergic to, I love dogs so much. I love playing with dogs. I don't want to ever, like, I had a dog for 11 years and there wasn't an issue unless I rubbed my freaking face in my dog, right? Which I had a fluffy Keyshawn, so it was hard not to do that. Like, and he was my best friend, you know what I mean? Like, we wrestled. Like, I was freaking 7 when I got this dog. So, like, grew up with this dog. 18 when my dog passed away. Like, my whole life was growing up with this dog. And so, but it's we were talking about before how everything is connected. It's the mental, spiritual, physical, all of it is
Correct.
connected. And so with all of that, I took the mental, which was like, Ryan, like, no, we're not allergic to these cats and dogs. We're the physical, we're exercising and taking care of ourselves and eating right, and the mental, physical, and the spiritual, and meditating and having this reflection to realize all of this. So like taking the holistic approach.
Yep.
And so now the eczema, which is the precursor to the asthma, is almost non-existent. Like I still have dry skin and stuff. The asthma is it's hit or miss. It usually hits me that night before I go to bed, but also cold air is something that has been in my history, has been something that aggravated it. But I know that with the change of the diet, with the change, like a really restrictive diet, like I have a very restrictive diet now where I there's not a single thing that I eat that has an ingredient label, like things like that type
You eat real food.
Yeah, I eat real food. Who would have thought eating real food would help? And like changing so many different things around, doing all the things that I can to bring it back to the whole COVID-19 thing. So it has completely put down my fear of this. And I know that whatever happens, and I've put myself in the best position.
Correct. Yeah. So with that, you just basically told the story of going from a victim mentality to an action mentality, right? Rather than being a victim of the circumstance of the news that you're hearing, you took positive action to mitigate your fear, your potential fear. Who knows with all the numbers and what's fudged and what's cooked and what's true and what's not. It's definitely something to be aware of. But for someone like yourself to be driven by fear and to worry about it, it probably doesn't make much sense, right?
And it's a stressor. Viruses flourish in the stress of the fear. So
correct. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you mentioned all the positive things. If someone's not doing those positive things and they're in the negative, your system's on high alert, which means anything can go wrong. Little things can tip you over, right? That shouldn't happen. We're meant to be resilient if we're able to recover from the stresses of the day. That's not just physical, mental, emotional. It's also environmental, nutritional, spiritual. It depends on what's going on. But like, we're meant to be resilient and survive. That's part of the animal aspect. Actually, we're going to sidetrack a little bit and get like deep and philosophical with gratitude here.
I like this.
You're approximately, I don't know, like 30, 40 trillion human cells and at least an equivalent amount of bacterial cells, maybe 10 times more. I don't know. There's all different kinds of approximations of numbers based on algorithms. No one really knows. But it's like trillions and trillions and trillions, right? And each one of those cells has all these different organelles that are doing different things, but also interacting with their environment, constantly getting bombarded by hormones, enzymes, neurotransmitters, pathogens. There's so much shit going on at any given time. Bro, we don't have to think about any of it. It happens automatically. It is our innate intelligence. We're born with this amazing innate intelligence that's incredibly resilient if you take care of it.
Yeah.
Or it can be a prison if you don't take care of it. Right? There's like a general rule. Someone watching this, take a look at where you are now. Take a look at your past. Reflect on your past. Are you moving towards a worse prison? Or are you going towards something better where you are resilient and healthy and able to deal with bumps along the road? Could be a mental bump, could be a professional bump, could be a physical bump, could be a health bump, right? But if you're not resilient, anything will tip you over. And being grateful for this amazing built-in innate intelligence that nature gave us, it's absolutely amazing. That should brighten your day in and of itself. You don't have to think about pumping your blood. You don't have to think about your lymphatic fluid. You don't have to think about your muscles taking care of themselves, right? You have to do the easy shit. Just eat some real food. vegetables, fruits, meats, nuts and seeds, grains. Depends on what kind, how you prepare it, who we're talking about. That's a little bit more complex. Eat less of the processed fried bullshit. Get a full night's sleep. Move around throughout the day. Do some exercise. Find something that you love. Interact with people that you enjoy interacting with. Appreciate the things that you have yourself, mentally, emotionally, physically, the people around you, the things that you have materialistically. Dude, life is awesome if you just do the easy things. Nature took care of the hard things, focusing on the literally, it's a functionally infinite amount of things that are happening at any given time. That's not even looking at and like a subatomic level and quantum physics. That's just looking at it from a cellular level.
Like,
it's functionally infinite. That's amazing. What a gift. What an amazing.
Think about if we I'm gonna go a little even deeper. I'm gonna go deep too with deeper into just what you were talking about, not philosophically, but the fact that we started as a single cell organism, right? Now that single cell is now one of trillion of our body.
Yeah.
We used to be that single cell, and who knows about the thoughts or whatever it had to function, right? It was not functioning on its own like they are in us now. So to go through evolution to get to this point where we are, the gratitude, it's Gary Vaynerchuk talks about the probability of us even being born, and like anybody can take that statement. It's like trillions to one that we're born. So just the gratitude that you woke up today and that you're alive should alone be enough to get you going for the day, right? But anybody can take
a simple reminder.
Yeah, like it's when we get so caught up that we aren't grateful to
for
just
the basic
be alive and to be able to breathe. And to take it even a step further, like the fact that I have 4 functioning limbs, the fact that I have my fingers and toes, the fact that my eyes work, the fact that my ears work, the fact that I can
big time,
the fact that I don't have a speech impediment. I don't have like every little thing. And I'm not saying anybody that has those things is, because a lot of times anybody that has those, I don't want to say disability. I don't want to say impairment. Anybody that
situations, they have those situations.
Any of those things usually finds an even better way to overcome it. Right?
It makes it harder. It makes in our culture, those things make life harder.
Yeah. Like my buddy sent me a video of this guy who's playing video games blowing through a straw.
Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. So like there's always ways. I mean, there's been I've seen on ESPN and stuff, the guy that has no limbs past his elbows or knees, but he's a mechanic and he drives and he has like all these and he's got like a 90 or a 69 Impala that he refurbished restored all over, and he's like a really well respected mechanic and like does all his own work, and he figured out he figured out his purpose and what he wanted to do, and he figured out a way to do it. So
persevered,
So we should all be able to, like, he is someone who has the gratitude for being alive, right? Like clearly. Like, I'm not letting any of these things hold me back. He like you said, got away from that victim mentality and positive action to do the thing, because he was like, I love cars. I love this. I want to figure out a way to do this.
And what's the alternative?
And what's the alternative, right?
It's negative.
Yeah. And it leads down a scary, bad path that can lead to so many terrible, terrible things. But it's the victim mentality that leads to so many, like we can talk about my earlier life and the choices that I was making, the victim mentality that made me do the things that I did, that brought me to a place where I was so low that I was so desperate to make a change with my life, to then seek out different ways of the self-help type stuff and motivation and really honing in, finding remembering what I loved, which was health and fitness and exercise and sports, and figuring out a way to to make that what drives my everyday. And
Yep.
it's a perfect example of taking of starting on a positive path that has then led to so many other doors and so many other things.
Exactly.
Like I
Yeah.
started with one goal. I started with one goal of like, I don't like myself and I need to get better. And it started, I talked about this on the other podcast. It started from a place of I hate myself. And then as I got bigger or as I got more deeper and deeper into it and more educated, I continued because I then developed a love for myself, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I knew that these things were all going to expand and better my life. So that's why I have to keep going. And that's why I have to learn more. And the
Mm-hmm.
more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So like
Exactly.
smarter I become in any of these areas, the more I realize that I am dumb.
Yeah, that's an amazing situation. That's a wonderful situation, and it's a really important realization.
It's so important because there's so many, like we just talked about, the person who is I'm right, you're wrong, is the person who has stopped
Stop
the
growing.
who's absolutely stopped the growth and is going to, like you said, the hindsight becoming the future. Like it's not
Yep.
going, there's not going to be a change because
Yep.
there's no growth there. There's no growth in the I'm right, you're wrong. And when it comes to someone making a change in their life, it almost like a lot of times, not, like you said, there's no absolutes. A lot of times someone has to go to such a low point
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
doing
It seems to be true.
change. Now, if we can also talk about the education system and like if these things are taught
Yeah.
when we're younger,
Yeah.
then
Oh, I agree.
if these things are taught when we're younger, then
I
like
agree.
there can be a big change in not just there's so much that can be changed with starting education of like the book of Think and Grow Rich and stuff at such a young age.
Yep.
But it starts with education, not even just at the younger level, because it's the people teaching this stuff, right?
Sure.
Not everyone has this school of thought that we're clicking on, right?
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunately very true.
And what we're talking about costs a lot of money to then implement, right? And that doesn't work for the people who are pumping the money into the political system of
Yeah.
that can influence the change, right? There's a whole
Which is true, and that's not something that's probably going to change anytime soon. But it opens up the door of opportunity for people who have been in a bad situation because they weren't taught these things growing up, right? They learned it on their own from somewhere else, directly or indirectly. For me, it was books, basically, and books led to other books, and books led to people and to videos and podcasts and stuff. Building that community of positivity, and then it opens up the door to give back and help other people who, just like you and just like me, weren't taught those things,
mm-hmm.
right? So it would be better if this stuff was taught through the education system, no doubt about it, right? But there is some good that comes out of it for people, adults who've gone through it, to help others.
And so just as I had this whole rant about how it needs to start with the education of being younger, and I now in hearing it out loud and regurgitating to you, and then you kind of talking about like sort of agreeing with that sort of point, and how like it's very hard to change. Well, first off, I love the Gandhi quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world," right?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
So there's that, but also I don't know if it would have the impact it has had on my life had I been taught it at a young age
Yes.
versus
There's no way to know that. Yeah, exactly.
going on my own journey and
Correct.
seeking
Correct.
out this stuff. So there's two sides to the coin right there too.
And here's it's not, well, there's a problem with that. I don't know what the numbers are. Let's just say it's half, right? It's probably not. It's probably more than half, but let's just say it's half. Half the people don't end up with your situation or my situation. They're mired in it, which means there's a fuckload of collateral damage from it not being implemented, right? Which is a huge issue. But, and I think about this, I used to think about it all the time. I still think about it once in a while. I didn't give a shit about school when I was in school, including college until like my last year or two, maybe. And I'm sure I did learn all those things directly or indirectly. Like if you watch, I watch movies now, like Pixar movies and I don't know, shit like that. Or sometimes maybe like a cartoon. I was like, oh, wow, look at the message they put in there. Bro, I never got any of that shit. It never came across to me. It was merely entertainment, right? And now as an adult, I'm like, oh my God, those messages probably were around me. And I'm sure teachers and my parents and other adults said those things or they tried to get across. I just didn't fucking pick up on it, right? So I take the blame for that. That's part of being responsible, being an adult, and getting away from being a victim. And I think about that. Even if it was taught, there are going to be people who are not ready for it, right? There are going to be people who are not ready for it. So there's no, and here's the problem. Either way, there's no right answer. And there's always going to be people who have to take that journey. They have to get burnt by the fire first. And then hopefully they turn it around. Hopefully there's some kind of catalyst in their environment that pushes them towards turning it around. If there's not, you get burned up by the fire. There's nothing left.
It's another thing that I'm happy you brought up the Pixar, the Disney movies, all those things had such powerful messages, and they were so impactful and so entertaining because of the messages that they portrayed. But it was, we were not ready to receive the message.
Correct.
Right? So then taking it even further, a lot of the things that I have learned on this journey of my self-exploration, of self-help and trying to grow, that I can always relate to. Well, yeah, my mom did always say, treat others how you want to be treated. My mom, there's always been those messages. It's, what is it? When the student is ready to learn, the teacher will appear.
Yeah, exactly.
So now, after just talking and going on a rant about how it should be taught to us when we're younger, I realize maybe I needed to, like the student, when I had to become ready in order to hear those messages. So that's also, what's the thought process I'm trying to go through. So I had to become ready, but also, what's that? I was going somewhere with that.
So I'll talk and I'll let you mull that over, because what you're saying actually parallels with what you were saying about the meditation and the gong. If you weren't ready to calm yourself, if you weren't ready to lay there and relax and calm your mind, you wouldn't have received the same benefit. If you weren't willing and open to feel the vibration of the gong, you wouldn't have received the same benefit. Someone else could have been laying in that room and thinking about all the shit that happened yesterday and the stuff they have to do tomorrow. They did not have the same experience as you. Someone else might be relatively calm, but they might be judging. They're like, oh, this is stupid. This doesn't work. This doesn't do anything. They're not receiving the same benefit. Being willing, open, and ready for whatever this thing is. For you, it was that meditation. Right now, we're talking about the messages that are hidden in movies and stories and stuff like that. If you're not ready, you're not going to get it. It doesn't matter, right? The question becomes, how do you prime someone to be ready to receive the message in a meaningful way? Where it's not just like, oh, yeah, fuck it, I heard that before. I don't remember if we were even recording, or I think I said this before we were recording. And I was like, my clients who gave me those books that were like life-changing books. And then after reading them, I realized they never applied any of that stuff to themselves. And it was a terrible, terrible realization. I felt really bad for them, right? It's like, how do you, like, you can say it, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't feel it. And you could feel it, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't take action on it. You can take action on it, but that doesn't mean shit if you don't do it in a meaningful way consistently over time, because it's got to snowball. So it's like there's a lot of roadblocks along the way, and that's why, you know, there is no right answer. There's probably a better answer. I don't even know what that is. Education's not my arena. Not that kind of education.
Yeah.
One-on-one, health, fitness, lifestyle, nutrition, psychology, philosophy, stuff like that. That's my one-on-one education, right? But like the education system, I don't know. We'll leave that to somebody else.
So so I remembered where I was I'm happy
Good.
you took that.
Good.
I remember. So where I was going with that is that I need the best teacher that I've experienced has itself been experience. So I had.
Oh, that's good. High five.
Yeah.
High five. I've
So,
never done that before.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that's where I was going. So again, that's what makes the quote, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's what makes that make sense, right? Like we kind of have been taught all those things, but it took the experiences that I went through to then realize, okay, now I need to find different ways to improve myself. And then those same things that I might have been taught but not heard, that I might have been told but didn't hear, I was then told them again, but was then able to hear them and implement it into my life. So that whole process, it
sometimes you have to go through a negative to search out the positive. Even though the positive was there the whole time, you have to go through the negative sometimes.
And so we talk, it's, what is it? A smart person learns from their own mistakes, but a wise person learns from the mistakes of others. Is the quote that I just butchered, but you get what I'm saying.
It's more or less like that. It's the idea that matters.
Yeah. So, but also, there's not many people that are wise that aren't also old, that have been able to go through those because they had to go through those experiences to become wise. So now they're open to, oh, this is what all these other people did. So maybe I just don't do those things, or I do those things to get that result. So now as I'm older and wiser, I'm now more, my time management and my efficiency and my actions is more precise and more, and I see maybe results I see results quicker because I'm now older and I've gone through. Whereas you
came out of it better. You went through it and came out of it better. And you're still getting better. You're still progressing. So which is the whole point, to start and grow, to start and get better.
I don't know if you can relate to this, but I remember being 14 and being like, I'm ready to live on my own. Why do I need to live under my parents and with all these rules? And I thought I knew everything.
Yeah.
It might even have been 11 or 12 when I had that first time that I had that thought of, I like went through something and my parents said, don't do this. And I was like, forget this. I don't want to, like, and I was just like angry with them. And I was like, I could move out now and like, I'd be fine. And like, I didn't even know what taxes were at that point.
Yeah.
Like now that I look back at like how much I really didn't know then, and then progressing even further when I was 19 and in college and thinking I knew everything and how much I didn't know. And then when I got to 24, I effectively was smarter, but was like, wow, I don't know anything. And then from 24 to 29, where I am now, it's like, who the fuck did you think you were at 24, bro?
Well, so here's the humbling part. And what you said, I went through that same exact process in like my mid-20s, and it's proven true. You know a lot of things now. You think you know a lot of things now.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you'll continue on this path, and 10 years from now, you'll be like, wow. It's not that you didn't know, but there was so much more that you didn't know. You know now, but there's so much more that you're not even aware of. Hopefully that's a situation, because what you're saying, it's a pattern. It's a good pattern because you can reflect and you're growing. But hopefully the pattern continues. And even though now you know more than you ever have before, 10 years from now, you'll be like, fuck, I knew a decent amount, but I didn't know a lot. right?
Yeah.
Hopefully that continues. I actually had an ex-girlfriend, and this is a negative version of your story. I didn't say anything to her, but this was years ago. Holy shit. This was probably like 12 years ago. We had broken up years before, and we just got together on occasion. We stayed friends for, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years after our breaking up. It was like, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
I almost gave away who it is, maybe. So she had this habit of being like, oh, I was just young and dumb. And then like a year later, talking about a couple of years before, oh, I was just young and dumb. And then a year later, same thing. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, she doesn't realize what's happening. She looks back and is like, oh, I'm dumb. And I'm like, you're doing shit right now that you're going to look back on and be like, oh, I was just young and dumb. But if you had the realization of this pattern, you can stop yourself from doing that shit. You can prevent your regret, right? Now, I didn't have the tools and the capacity to tell her that at the time, but it stood out to me. I recognized her pattern. I wouldn't have been able to get it across to her. And even if I did, she probably wouldn't listen to it, right? Because context matters, the messenger matters, blah, blah, blah. But it's really important to recognize that pattern and then realize you are probably in it right now.
Yeah.
And now is the cool part, because now you have an opportunity to do better than what you did in the past and make sure you head in the right direction. Right. So that's a good process. Good for you.
And wow. So to now also look at like relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and I am talking romantic relationships, right? I'm not talking like our relationship, right? Like it's very different and very similar at the same time. But the romantic relationship that I'm talking about is and the looking back on now being like how I've been in romantic relationships leading up to now, and looking like the 29-year-old looking back on the 24-year-old and being like, who did you think you were? And now being like, oh wow, so how I've been in relationships, and I'm not saying that I've been terrible in relationships, like by all means, but now I see where there's ways that I can grow. And so now it's about making those changes. And how do we make those changes? Well, we have to identify what those things are. And
bingo.
And that's you can't make changes if you don't know what to change. So the first thing is identifying those things. Like,
correct. And we're not talking about easy identifying. Identifying is identifying other people's problems. Yeah. The real shit, the hard shit, the honest stuff is identifying your own problems. That's a process to go through, but what's more valuable than that? Identifying your shortcomings so that they can be mitigated or eliminated, and then you can be better.
Cleaning your own side of the street, right? Like
exactly.
That's the another quote that I don't know where I've heard it before and whatnot.
I've never heard that before, but I like it.
It's like all you can do is clean your side of the street. Like we can always sit here, and usually when we see something in someone else that we think they should change, it's because in reality probably that's something about us that we should change, right? Like that we always can point out in somebody else. We can only see it though because we've either had to have changed it or we need to change it in ourselves because we do it ourselves.
Correct. So I have a very interesting example of that just happened maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, right? So I'm 36 now. I started my lifestyle change when I was like 25, 26, right? So I got back 10, 11 years under my belt. And initially a lot of it was identifying negatives, right? In myself, in individuals, in culture, in society, in human history. And like, you got to zoom in, zoom out, and then play in between so you can understand what the fuck is going on, right? And the zealotry and the dogma and the, myopia and all that stuff. And I judged the people on the radical ends of the spectrum, right? And I looked at myself as like a centrist, right? Like, I'm here, I'll visit because I'm interested to know how the fuck did you get over there, right? And I'll come back and I'll do the same thing over there. And I realized just a couple years ago, and I think I was listening to a podcast, like a London Real podcast or something like that. I don't remember who the person was. And it sparked off a brand new thought process, thought I never had before. I'm like, oh my God, I'm judging the radical left and the radical right because I'm the radical center. I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, how ironic is that? Yeah. So here's the cool part though, because judgment is a form of poison. It's not as bad as like anger, sadness, shame. Ugh, that's fucking rough stuff. But it's like an internal poison that it's not doing any good. And it allowed me to get away from that because I had the realization that, holy fuck, am I just like them except I'm here judging them? And this is the realization. The person on this side is judging me and them. The person on this side is judging me and them. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, am I just like them? I'm only in the middle. I'm not on the end. And it's a really important thing to have that reflection, to not judge, right? To try to understand so that you can be better and hopefully be the change that you want to see. And I did have this conversation with a client and they were blown away by it because they had never thought of it either. And they were more or less like me. We didn't go super deep in it, right? We're training, so we're not having like a 1 hour conversation on philosophy and shit. Yeah. But it was nice to pass on that idea. And someone else had like an aha moment. They were like, holy shit, I'm a radical centrist too. Like, I don't want to be radical. Like, that's not good. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I had my own very interesting realization. I don't even remember what the fuck we were talking about. What time is it right now?
And I can't even see the time on my laptop because I'm in full screen. But yeah. There was something that you said that made me think of something, and I was like, I was ready to, and then I was just like, I'm just listening, and it was something along the lines of it was when you said be the change you want to see the world, when we went back to that, and
yeah,
the ability to
pass it on to someone else, to give the aha moment to someone else, or no?
I'm not even sure. It was
Bro, I think we've been going at this.
What time is it?
We've been going at this for like 2.5 hours.
Wow. Yeah, it's 8:30.
I'm not used to having conversations like this. So the brain's a little bit.
Right. And that's what I love about this forum, because it opens the door for this type of conversation. Right. Like I said from 6 to 9 is like the window that we're going to do this. And we're going to go. Like, I've done a 1 hour podcast and I've done 3 hours
Yep.
There's what this opens the door for, and especially because of our conversation before we started recording and everything, we both were able to get on a vulnerable level where we were open the door for this open and honest communication. And this type of stuff is the only way that personal growth can happen, is when we have an open and honest conversation with someone else, and can talk about the different things that not only we've had to work on, but the things that we see in the world that we realize that we then have to work on, and that's why we're seeing it in the world. And and so much of this, this conversation has been, I thought it was going to go one way about us talking specifically about exercise and fitness and your expertise with that, but both of us have had such a journey that has started with exercise, but we realized when we started exercising that we found ourselves so much. So that's why exercise is such a beautiful thing, because it brings you on this journey of it brings on so much more than just a physical change in the body. Mm-hmm. Exercise.
The physical doesn't change unless the mental changes, and the mental won't be consistent unless there's an emotional component, and the emotional component won't be there unless there's a higher purpose that goes beyond your own superficial bullshit, whatever that might be. But what I wanted to say is, we could have talked about, like, you could have started asking me questions about different certifications or like training methodologies or modalities or different pieces of equipment, or why I would do this and what I would do in that situation. Those things are good. They're they're more in the realm of superficial. They're less beneficial, right? The conversation that we're having is fundamental to being a human being who operates beyond an animal level, being more than the animal, a human being, right? And they apply to everything, fitness included, right? So a lot of these things of developing yourself, of reflecting, of being introspective, of not judging, of not letting your emotions get the best of you, of meditating. Meditation is a vehicle to progress. Exercise is a vehicle to progress. Nutrition is a vehicle to progress. Sleep is a vehicle to progress. Reflection is a vehicle to progress. These things are all related in that regard, that they are, at a minimum, helping you in the right direction. And sometimes for a person who either had an extreme deficit or some kind of like genetic predisposition, they can find one thing that is a full rising tide, right? You're lucky if you find yoga, like, I don't know, whatever form of yoga, and it completely changes your life. It resonates with you so much that it makes everything else better. Man, you got lucky. You found that thing. Most people have to continue searching, but they give up. They give up after the first thing didn't work the way they wanted it to, right? So for most of us, we need a synergy of a little bit better here, a little bit better there, a little bit better here, a little bit, and everything goes up. Sometimes you find one thing and everything goes up, and that's a good situation. But I think this conversation is way more meaningful, impactful, and powerful than talking about sets, reps, exercises, program design, stuff. That stuff matters. But how many people does that apply to? And what's the foundation of going to the gym and changing your eating habits? It's the things that I just mentioned: the meditation, the reflection, the psychology, the philosophy, the spirituality, the sense of community, the connecting with other people, the education, right? Being educated with new ideas and being open to them and willing to try to understand. And then maybe if you don't change in the moment, later on down the road, you change, or you can apply it, right? When it's applicable, when it matters. So the conversation maybe wasn't what you expected it to be, but I think the conversation's, it's what it should be.
It's
right?
what it was meant
It's
to
what it's meant to be. Because this is, again, so you're having me on your podcast. What we've talked about, and it's interesting how much you mirror my own thought process, right? What we talked about is why I make the decisions I make in health and fitness, with my clients, with myself, with my education, right? So if we talked about the clients, we talked about my own training, and we talked about the education, those are all separate conversations. But without the foundation, you don't see that all those things are connected, and there's the same fucking themes that run through them. Same principles, same tenets, same maxims, right? They all fit under the umbrella, or they're on top of the foundation. However you want to phrase it, it doesn't matter. So I think this was the conversation that it should be. And then if we do this again, then we can have a specific conversation and tie it back into all the fundamental things that we referenced here, all of the elemental components that we referenced here.
Well, all of the things that we've talked about are lead to what I've been able to do as someone who is a strictly power lifter that now has no access to a squat rack, deadlift, and bench, right? So the open-mindedness and the willingness is that I have to find different ways, and I have to be open to different ways of training, right? To get my scene, because being in that squat rack, being on that bench, being on that deadlift platform are all forms of meditation for me. That,
for you.
that so much so became the only workout that I really wanted to do. Right?
Yeah.
It became so important to me that it's not that I didn't train any other way. It's that I didn't get excited.
You didn't see the same value.
Yeah, I didn't. It was almost to the point where I almost got dogmatic and religious about it, because I was thinking that it's the best and only and greatest way to train. Like, it got to that point, but being then able to reflect on that and being like, no, now I'm becoming like the person who's dogmatic religious about that certain form of
Which by definition, it means you're judging other people. You think you're better than other people, which is the problem, right?
Exactly.
So it's good that you caught yourself before that happened.
It's the form of the ego, right?
Yep.
I have found the answer, right? I have found the only way of exercising and the best way, and everyone should do it. And now, yes and no. Yes, is squatting and deadlifting good for, there's no absolutes. Are they good for everyone?
Depends on how you use it.
It
depends on how you use it.
Not everyone can squat, but not everyone can sit in a chair, and not everyone everyone can deadlift, and not everyone can pick up the laundry basket. Are they the same things, and are they things that people do on a regular basis? Yes. So to take that to where I was originally kind of going with it, I had to find different ways now to train. Now, had I not been an athlete growing up, and had I not been someone who started to really open the door for yoga and Pilates in my life, and had I not been someone who was still playing flag football and stuff with Kenny and that whole stuff, I could have took this as, I don't have access to the gym.
The downward spiral.
Power lift. Yep. I can't work out.
Yep.
But instead, I found ways to squat, bench, and deadlift in my room. Mm-hmm. That speaker.
I saw your videos. Yeah, I saw.
That speaker weighs about 50 pounds.
Yep.
It's nice. And it even has handles. Handles. So I was able, you saw the video, I was able to deadlift them. I was able to even do sumo, like hold it in the middle and stuff. And then I have a backpack with a bunch of water bottles. I also, I thought I didn't know how much weight it was. Like, I'm pretty sure it's about 50 pounds. And and I realized that 16 ounces of water is actually, 16 fluid ounces of water is actually a pound. So however many water bottles I had in my backpack was how much weight.
There you go. Yep.
So I had a case and a half, so it was 36 pounds. And I found a way to add 36 pounds to my push-ups and to my squat. But then I was like, damn, that's not even a plate. Like, you know what I mean? That's not even a 45-pound plate. But I'm not doing what I was before, which was sets of 1 to 5 reps.
Sure. You're not now doing strength training.
Yeah. Now I'm doing sets of 20.
But you can do super slow training. You could do eccentrics. You can do isometrics. You can do explosive training. So you can actually, here's a potential growth moment for you, not just mentally, emotionally with how you use exercise and view it, but stimulating different muscle fibers that weren't getting hit because you were developing the same muscle fibers in the same ways, the same joint angles, the same tempos. Here's a way to shock your system and get some need methods that maybe when the gym opens up, you will start to use those things because you see the value in doing a 15-second eccentric and a 15-second concentric. Bro, that's motor control right there. Yeah. You're getting better at your activity, right? Not moving weight, but better connection, better understanding of moving through joint angles, which is going to protect you and probably prevent injuries and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Hold on. So one thing, everything you're saying, you don't know I'm wearing this shirt. This is one of my favorite quotes of all time. I don't know if you can see it. It says, intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. It's Stephen Hawking, right? So what you just surmised, I guess is the right word. I don't know. I'm trying to use fancy words. I don't know. It's like a thing to do. It's like, let's use some different words and expand the lexicon a little bit. There's one of them. But then sometimes I'll use it and I'll be like, shit, I don't know if I use that correctly. Right. That's part of the growth process of trying to expand the vocabulary. But what you're saying, like, you adapted, that's a form of intelligence. Not adapting, which you can say not adapting is a form of victimhood, but that's a form of stupidity. Right? And here's the cool part. We didn't even get into this. Part of being human, we adapt to our environment probably better than any other animal. I don't know any other mammal, at least, that lives in as many different environments as human beings do. To the coldest ones, to the hottest ones, to to living on islands to living in arid deserts, right? We're pretty goddamn adaptable over time. Here's the cool part, and some mammals do this and some birds do it and cats do it and stuff like that. Some higher order mammals. I guess a bird's not a mammal, but whatever. We're not going to split hairs on that.
What it is.
We adapt our environment to us. That's our great strength.
Mm-hmm.
We adapt our environment to us. If you're a victim, you're not adapting your environment to yourself, right? Playing the woe is me thing. That is not only a form of stupidity, it's a complete and utter waste of your human ability, right? Of your potential to adapt your environment to yourself, which comes back to community and the people you surround yourself with and the messages you surround yourself, the podcast you watch, the podcast you listen to, the books you read. All those things, you're changing your environment to better suit yourself, right? Adaptation or adaptating, oh, Jesus Christ, brain. Adapting is what I meant to say. Mm-hmm. Adapting. It's like, it's necessary for progress and happiness, right? And what you're saying is an example of that. You adapted to the situation. There might have been a little lag time on it. I'm sure with most people there is. You have to deal with the stages of grief, but then you have to get over that shit. You have to grow up, get out of third grade, move on to the next level, do some different shit, because 6 months from now is going to happen. We might still be like this. We might be back to normal. It might be a hybrid, but it's going to fucking happen. 6 months from now, you can be like, oh shit, I wish I was doing something. I wish I searched online and found some videos of some exercise to do. I wish I went out and did some cart. Like, you know, it's going to happen. Why would you set yourself up to regret and judge yourself when you just make the small, simple choice now? And, oh God, I hate this phrase. I'm going to go on a little rant where it's like, oh, if it's easy to do, it's easy not to do. Fuck you, bro. If it's hard to do, right? Most people won't even start it, and they're probably going to stop. If it's easy to do, that's the best place to start. Guess what? When you go to school, they don't start you in 12th grade for a reason. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's too hard, right? Everyone's going to fail. If they take 7-year-olds and put them in 12th grade, they're all going to fail. They start you where it's easy because that's the smart thing to do, because it's sustainable, it's repeatable, and it can snowball. And eventually you get to the harder shit, right? So for people who are on quarantine, if you're watching this and you're not exercising, or you're not exercising as much as you would like, or your nutrition's off, start with something small and manageable, because 6 months from now is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing it now, you're probably going to regret it. And you're going to say, man, I wish I did that. I should have did that. And then you're beating yourself up. Your future self is beating yourself up for what you're not doing right now. Start with something small and reasonable, right? And then just slowly build on it, right? Just one step at a time. The staircase. That's how things happen. I go up one step, hang out there for a little bit, go up another step, hang out there for a little bit, go up another step, hang out there. That's how training happens. Anyone who does anything amazing with their body physically, that's how fucking training happens. Mm-hmm. You increase, you plateau. You increase, you plateau. Yes, you play around with parameters of intensity and volume, and joint angles and different velocities and all that bullshit, right? But it's a staircase. It's not a fucking ramp. That's how you get hurt. That's how you destroy your body, right? Yeah. So if someone is in the victim mentality for fitness specifically, we won't even talk about nutrition. Anything small is better than nothing, but you have to graduate. When you start in first grade, that's the right place to start. They don't teach you the same thing every single day. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Right? You're not going to be ready for second grade now. When you start in first grade, on day 1, they teach you day 1 stuff. On day 2, they teach you day 2 stuff. On month 2, they teach you month 2 stuff, right? There is a progression to it, which is super important. Start with something easy. Do just a little bit more. Don't do too much more, because your body's probably not going to be happy about that. It's probably not ready for it. Do a little bit more. Do a little bit more. Then maybe pick something else. Do a little bit of that. Do a little bit of that. That's the path that snowballs and allows you to gradually graduate from first grade fitness to second grade to third grade to fourth grade. And then maybe a year or 2 down the road, if you've been consistent, because that matters more than anything else, Christ almighty, being consistent, right? Then you can look back and be like, wow, look at all the progress that I made. And then realistically, other people, if you're in a gym or whatever environment where you're exercising or playing sports, it doesn't matter what it is. You can be playing sports, you can be doing yoga. Other people who are just starting out are going to look at you and be like, man, I could never do that, because they're in that same victim mentality. They don't understand it's a process that takes time. You just have to do it consistently, but you have to start in the right place, right? So if you failed 5th grade, maybe you go back to 4th grade, maybe you go back to 5th grade. I don't know. It's a concept that you have to, as an adult, apply to yourself, understand what is the best place to start to set you up for future success. If you're not doing anything and you want to do something, don't kick yourself in the ass in 6 months. Start with something small. If some fucking dickhead says, oh, if it's easy to do, it's easy not to do, fuck them. They're hurting you and preventing you from starting your journey. Mm-hmm. Don't let that shit happen. Maybe don't say fuck them, but say it in your head, right? You don't need unnecessary conflict. It depends on how they present it also, and who the person is. Messenger, message, context, it all matters, whatever.
Dude, so I wasn't ever going to let my my inability to remember thoughts hold me back from a talking point and having a pause like that ever again. So now I've been writing down.
Go for it. I saw you doing some stuff. Yeah.
So first of all, I have been looking at your shirt the whole time.
The intelligence.
And only seeing the top part, not putting together in my head that it spells intelligence, but in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, because yesterday when I did a podcast, I had my shirt that said Raw for this chick that goes to Diesel Gym. She's got a Raw Apparel it's her clothing.
Oh, cool. Company. That's a good name.
But because, Raw powerlifting,
Oh, sure. No offense to any geared powerlifters, but Raw powerlifting is the only powerlifting. Unless you're going for world records or national records. I don't know. I'm not even a powerlifter. I'm just saying that's my opinion as a non-powerlifter who also deadlifts. I don't know.
So it was backwards in my because
it said war.
So it said W was the only thing that goes the same backwards and forward. That backwards A, backwards R. So war. So I thought, looking at your shirt, that not only was it just random numbers and letters, but I thought it was backwards.
Gotcha.
So I wasn't even,
because you were looking at your own shirt.
I didn't even think that it was going to be possible for it to be something, because I was seeing it backwards and it was numbers and letters. So I didn't even try to figure out what it said. Right. So I'm so happy you stood up and actually
but can we talk about something really important? And we haven't talked about this yet. This is where education matters immensely. Your eye saw this, but you perceived it incorrectly. Your eye sees the truth. Your brain fucks shit up for you, right? Because you were going off of a past experience just yesterday, right? Very recent experience. This is a super important concept.
Yeah.
And it primed you to think in a certain way. Your eye saw it correctly. Your brain fucked it up because of its experience. This is where education matters, where reflecting matters, where introspection matters. You see everything. You see the truth. You perceive lies, right? So the goal is to peel back the layers and peel away your bullshit, which could be judgment, could be anger, any kind of negative feelings, emotions, perceptions, and see the truth of the situation. So that's cool that you said that, because I think, in my opinion, that's a very important concept to have at least an awareness of. It's depending on, with any kind of philosophy, there's any idea in philosophy is both superficial and deep. It depends on where you go with it and how it applies and all that stuff. But I'm glad you said that, because that's a perfect parallel of something simple that's not negative. We didn't hurt anyone, right? It didn't hurt anyone. So it serves as a really good segue of how easy it is to trick your perception and to trick your brain and to trick your mind.
And to take it a step further, my brain, after having that thought, wanted to avoid a conflict because it didn't even want to ask you Because how it would have come out would have been, bro, what the fuck is that?
Exactly.
Right? But
Yep.
I knew that's a sentence like that starts a conflict, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
But so to take it even a step further, that's how much. So that was a very small manifestation of a fear that then closed the door off for me to see how really actually beautiful of a quote that is on your shirt.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or, well, if you were able to, if you didn't have that perception, you would have figured out that says intelligence, most likely. And then you would be like,
Maybe.
why does his shirt say intelligence like that?
Yeah.
And then it sparks off a cool conversation, right?
But my past experiences held me back from an opportunity
Yep.
for me to grow.
With everyone, with everything. Yes. That's a great message. Yes.
That's where I wanted to go with all of that, and why it was so important for me to bring up that shirt, and why I wrote it down that I had to bring up your shirt, because that's where I wanted to go with that conversation. Another thing that you talked about is you said two words separately that I think there's an actual equal signs in between. Progress equals happiness.
Yes.
I think
I agree.
that there is a direct correlation, and that was something that was a realization that I came to when I was recovering from my ACL injury, because I was seeing myself of being like, fuck, I am a power lifter and I play football. What if I can't?
Yeah.
Because I'm an ACL injury at 26. I
Yep.
was like, oh, fuck.
It's a scary question.
I was identifying myself
That's the problem.
as just that, right?
Yeah, that's the
And
problem.
so then that I was able to then see through rehab, I was able to be excited that I finally was able to lift my leg up off the table.
Yeah, I'm the same way with progress. I'm the same way.
And just the excitement that I was like, oh my God, yes, I can finally lift it. And I was like, holy shit, that tiny little thing just brought so much happiness to my life. And
that's a good life.
And yeah.
You're grateful for the little things. That's a good life.
And that's when I realized that if I'm looking at the big picture of, oh my God, I can't squat and stuff, well, I need to now look at the little inch by inch progress that I'm making, because I'll never be able to get back to squatting if
you don't make that progress.
Focus and make this progress.
Correct.
All right, Ryan, I need to first lift the leg up off the ground. All right, now I need to start to be able to bend it. Now I need to start to be able to build the strength. Now I need to be able to do this. And slowly but surely, I was able to then get to a point where in my powerlifting competition, I squatted 465 pounds and I deadlifted 565 pounds.
Big turnaround.
Like,
but you did it starting in the correct grade at the correct day, and gradually doing the small things that end up being, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Someone who's new to powerlifting would be like, how the fuck did you deadlift that much weight? And then you tell them that you had an injury, like, that's impossible. Like, how did you do that? Like, no, it's a process.
It was an under 3-year turnaround from me to go to not being able to lift my leg up, being able to squat. I'm talking squatting more than 155 pounds than I could pre-surgery.
Oh, wow. That's big.
Deadlifting more than 200 pounds. No, deadlifting 145 pounds more than my max before the injury.
That's enormous.
In a 3-year span from lifting my leg, in an under 3-year span from lifting my leg to doing that. And that the gratitude, and then like I'm about to start crying. The fact that I then, like, look, I'm in my own gym, in my weight class, there's people that out squat and out bench, out deadlift me by 100 pounds.
Sure.
In my own weight class.
Yeah.
In my own gym, in my own weight class. Granted,
Yeah.
he's the 18th strongest person in my weight class.
It's also not a normal gym.
Yeah. But the fact that less than 3 years after an ACL surgery, I was able to get to a point where I won best lifter in the competition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I set a state record in the WMPF for my weight class. Like that is a whole, and 3 months into me, into my process of rehabbing, I had to go back on crutches because of the stress I had put on my legs. So I had the setback, took myself back out onto disability, and had to restart that process of almost from square one again. So, and then still at 6 months was cleared to go back to football, but told that I probably shouldn't, because I need to get my right thigh to be as big as my left thigh, so there's no imbalance.
Yeah.
So
well,
it was crazy, like to get that best lifter in the competition award, and to then when I got home reflect on all the things that led up to that point.
Yeah. So,
oh my God, like
that's the important message, though, that applies for everyone, because you did something exceptional that's not normal, right? Even without the injury, right? You won the best lifter award. You set a record. That's not normal. That's exceptional, right? You had massive PRs compared to before the injury.
Mm-hmm.
But along the way, you did easy things. You did normal things that built upon each other. That's the important message that people don't talk about in fitness enough. It's all extreme this, extreme that, 10 days, 1 month, but bro, it's not sustainable. None of that shit's going to work. You got to an exceptional place, not by doing exceptional things, by doing normal things progressively over time, right? This is the thing that people need to grasp, that people need to be in the allied health field and fitness specifically need to be talking about more.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process. It takes time. It takes a lot of time, but you do normal shit every day. It's just normal shit that builds.
And then to bring this whole process, the other reason why I wanted to bring this up is because of what you said. If you're someone who's watching this and you feel like you're not doing enough, it's not about going crazy and doing the most. It's about doing one more little thing, right?
Start where you are.
I didn't get to my diet of eating. This is basically what my diet is: grass-fed beef, sweet potatoes, apples, bananas, oranges, celery, carrots. That's basically all I'm eating right now. The only things that I'm adding to these things are pink Himalayan sea salt, black and white cracked pepper, turmeric, honey, and cinnamon.
No ginger?
And mustard. And then I'm drinking things like kombucha with ginger and things like that. So
garlic?
Huh?
No garlic? What about like herbs like rosemary?
So I'm the stuff there's very few things that I'm allowed at this point, because I'm doing the elimination to try and see what's causing the autoimmune response of the asthma and the But I would not have been open to doing this diet had I not, over the past 5 years, 5 years ago, cut out fast food. 5 years, over
Good
the
point. Too extreme.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's why, of course, the person that goes from eating the American diet to going vegan gets healthier. That's still Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going from eating shit to eating real food.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, we can say what we want about vegan, carnivore, primal, keto, all these different
exactly.
of those diets are much healthier than what the average American is eating.
I agree.
So all of those, you're going to see health benefits.
If you were eating a shitty American diet.
Yeah, long term.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
We don't know what the best one is for you, but
everyone's genetics are different.
Everyone's genetics different. So even
their microbiome's different.
Even within my own family, my sister is vegan and crushing it. Did a whole pregnancy and gave birth to twins being a vegan. that I honestly didn't think it was possible, and I was scared for the babies' lives.
Yeah.
And my sister did it, and her blood panel is fine. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, she does some supplementing, but she gets all the vitamins, nutrients, she hits all her macros, all that
Yeah.
stuff that is important. Like all the stuff that's important, she's doing. Now,
Yeah.
do I think, like in my diet, I've had to cut out certain things, the only grain that I'll eat is brown rice. It's the only, like, I won't eat bread, I won't eat pasta, I won't eat anything, but I'll eat pasta that's made from brown rice, and I'll eat brown rice.
Mm-hmm.
But I've only had those two things once each over the past 3 weeks that I've been on this diet. So like,
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
I basically don't eat those things. And
Yeah.
to be honest, it's because those things, like, I like grilling and I like the process of preparing the meat and all of that.
Sure.
I'm not a fan of sitting and watching water turn to boil and boiling pasta and making rice and stuff. Like, that's not a fun process.
There's another element to grilling. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the only reason why I spend the time to grill those meats. And because I see a lot more nutritional value to the meat than I do to the pasta or the brown rice, right?
Sure.
Like the pasta and the brown rice, I should probably add more to my diet so that I'm more full, because I do intermittent fasting as well. And I wait till 6 p.m. usually to break my fast, because I know once I start eating, I can't stop unless I fall asleep. Like last night, I'm laying down to go to bed and like, no, I'm still hungry. And I went and I made a sweet potato and I heated up 2 burgers and I ate the sweet potato and 2 burgers, and then finally was like, Ryan, like, you have to go to bed. Like, you have to go to sleep. Like, and I could have kept eating, and I was full. I was full before I had those two burgers and the sweet potato, but my body was still craving. So
yeah, nutrition. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I need to implement more of the brown rice, and just even forget about the brown rice pasta, whatever.
Give it some diversity.
The brown rice in general to soak up or to take up space.
Well, it's also a different macronutrient profile and it's a different micronutrient profile. So you're going to get different benefits. Anything has different benefits and different potential negatives. Depends on the person, depends on their genetics, their microbiome. It depends on their psychology, how they view something. Depends, but so much stuff. That's why I don't like talking about nutrition in a general sense, because it's so appropriate. Nutrition is so specific, so contextual, that it's hard to have an appropriate conversation that doesn't breed a bunch of dogma and zealotry and different camps and all that stuff. But
and other things that I'm also that are also in my diet is apple cider vinegar.
Good. Yeah.
Extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil.
Yeah. You need the healthy fats.
Coconut oil is the only thing I use in I do drink black coffee every day, and I have coconut oil.
Nice.
And everything I add to that. And I do also take magnesium. I take it's NAC is the letters for it, but it's something that is good for lung health for someone with asthma. I don't know. It's a precursor to either an enzyme or a protein or something that helps with lung. I forget.
Fair enough.
I read and heard and saw these videos and all this stuff, and it was all like doctors' videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Normal person making YouTube videos. That's why I take that, and I also take Alpha Brain by.
Okay.
I love that. I love Alpha Brain. Alpha Brain and caffeine is. We can say what we want that I don't do drugs, but I do caffeine and Alpha Brain together, and that's pretty much Adderall.
Bro, technically everything's a drug. Technically everything is a drug.
Everything has elicits some sort of dopamine response, right? Everything you take in. So food can definitely be drugs. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why.
And you can be addicted to anything too.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that I wanted to mention, because this was a huge pivot for me when I was in my late 20s. And I was already working on changing my thought process and developing understanding of myself and other people and like culture and stuff. And I realized, so I was playing soccer at the time. I was playing a couple soccer leagues. I was playing a men's league and a co-ed league. And if I had a good game, I was fucking high on life for days. If I had a bad game, I beat myself up for days. And I identified as a soccer player, right? So there's a big issue. And I realized that. And I started to diversify my activities. So initially my goal was I'm going to pick up one new activity every year. I'm going to keep the things that I like. I'm not scrapping them, right? And I put time into it, and it has value, and I like doing it. So I'm going to continue doing it. I'm going to do a little bit less of it, though, because I don't want to be so pigeonholed, because if something went wrong. So I had an inversion, eversion ankle sprain a couple of days before Christmas. So I sprained my left ankle probably half a dozen times in my career, and that was a bad one. Bad one. And it was a realization. It's like, holy shit, I'm in love with this too much. If something goes wrong, who cares about the body? It's the psychology that gets fucked up because of how I identified, right? So it's important, if you're powerlifting, to not identify as a power lifter. Mm-hmm. You can say you're a strength athlete. That's broader, right? Yeah. But let's say you hurt your back, right? Like bad. Well, you can't really do any strength sports, right? So maybe you should identify yourself as a fitness enthusiast, or like someone who's involved in movement culture. Yeah, well, that's the next level. That's even bigger. Mm-hmm. Or someone who's just a competitor. Mm-hmm. You can compete in anything. Mm-hmm. I can compete in video games. I can compete in chess. I can compete in darts. I can compete in lifting. I can compete in racing. Mm-hmm. So another one of my favorite quotes, I don't have a shirt for this. There should be a shirt for this. I don't know why there isn't. Josef Frusek from Fighting Monkey. I think I mentioned them in the beginning. I did 3 workshops with them. They're brilliant. They do so much good stuff. And he has a quote. I don't know if it's from him directly, but that's where I got it from. Diversity breeds immunity. Now, the cool part is I'd already been doing that for years at the time. When I heard it, I'm like, holy fuck, I wish I thought of that. I'm like, I've already been applying that idea, but what a beautiful 3-word phrase that is, right? And it does, because when you compete in a number of things year round, and not competing to win, because if you compete to win, you're going to destroy your body, right? How long can you compete to win and not break down? Maybe a couple of years. I want to be fit for the rest of my life, and I don't want to be in pain all the time, and I'm not. I was chronically hurt from 19 to 29. Every single year, actually not 29, for like 29 and a half. Every single year from then, I get better. I'm better every single year in my 30s than I ever was in my 20s or my teens, right? Because you gradually build over time, and you diversify the activity, so you're not overloading any one tissue, any one joint, any one system, any one structure. And you actually, in diversifying your activities, build more movement intelligence, build more stability, build more resiliency in any given joint, tissue, system, or structure. As far as training is concerned, and now we're getting back to kind of what you wanted to talk about, this is so overlooked and underutilized, it's laughable. I do not know what the fuck is happening in our industry with the prevalence of injury rates, not just in team sports, but in fitness, right? Mm-hmm. We need more diversity. And that doesn't mean random shit thrown around. There has to be a thought process to it. There has to be a synergy to it. They have to coincide with each other in a way that is mutually beneficial for long-term health. And guess what happens when you're healthy for a long time? Your performance gets better. Yeah. The only reason I'm better now at 36, 35, 34, 33 is because I don't get hurt anymore. Spent 10 years being chronically hurt. Right? And this is my story about learning about the body and psychology and all that stuff, trying to dig myself out of that hole, which a lot of it was spurred on by psychology, negative thought process, anxiety, depression, manifesting as anger, beating myself up with exercise, beating up my body, becomes a negative downward spiral, beat up your body, beat up your mind. Mind's beat up the body even more. Getting out of that shit and being healthy first, your performance is going to be fantastic, right? You got to be healthy first though, which means you have to think about it the right way. You can't use exercise to punish yourself, because you're going to destroy your body. If you identify as a single thing, and this happens in the running community all the time, they identify as a runner. They love running. It's a drug for them, right? It's therapy. For the most part, it's more positive than it is negative. It has some negatives. Most runners are in the yellow zone all the time. They're always dealing with something. They get hurt and they can't run. They have an identity crisis. And it doesn't just affect them, it affects the people around them. Family members, coworkers, loved ones, spouse, romantic partner, whatever. Hopefully not pets. Hopefully not beating their pets, but some people it probably happens, unfortunately. In which case, they would be much better off if they had just a little bit more diversity in their activities. Let's say they're a runner who also does some body weight activity. Okay, maybe you can't do body weight activity on one leg because you hurt your ankle or your knee. You could do your other leg. You could do your core. You could do your upper body, which means, coming back to what you said about your rehab process, you can still make progress in other areas and get better in other areas. And then when you're ready to run, you can go back to running again without dealing with the negative consequences of not being able to do the things that you identified yourself with. When people do that, you set yourself up for failure because injuries will happen. When you push your body and you look for your limits will find you. Hopefully, not in an extreme manner, but sometimes it is. And you're fucked. And now you're done for 6 months, you're done for 9 months. Maybe you never go back to it. At least you got back on the horse and you did it in a smart way. But I wanted to bring this up because it's important for you, but it's an important concept in general because people latch onto a single thing, right?
Yeah.
Diversify. Let's say you find that one thing that you love. It makes everything better. You want to continue to do that, not for the next year, but for the next 10 years, at least, maybe 15 or 20. Depends on where you are. I don't know. You need to find other things that synergize with it that prevent this one thing that you love from destroying you. Because you're going to go up until you go down. And if you crash, you're fucked. Again, not physically. The body can always recover. You can do other things. It's the mental, emotional aspect of crashing. And people get mired in their own victim mentality. This whole, woe is me. I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to do that. I don't know who I am. Blah, blah, blah. I've been there. I'm speaking from experience. This is not, I didn't read about this in a book or sit in a classroom. This is fucking experience. Then I read about it and learned about it. I'm like, oh, that's what I was dealing with.
Yeah.
Right. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's for you specifically, but for everyone generally. And it was for me specifically, it made an enormous difference in my life to have health as the foundation, to build diversity, and to compete in many things. And everything gets better, right? But health is not just diversifying your activities. It's what we've said a half a dozen times. Full night's sleep, quality sleep, nutrition, hydration, meditation, recovery, stretching, foam rolling, breath work, blah, 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 movement throughout the day. You can't be sedentary for 23 hours, crush your body for 1 hour and expect it to be healthy.
Yeah.
You can be fit in 1 hour. You ain't going to be healthy. Right. So just wanted to throw that out there.
That I'm happy you brought up the fact that in your 20s, you were not injury prone, you were getting injured a lot. And then
I was injured all the time.
Yeah. So
I was constantly in pain. So
we've all heard the no pain, no gain phrase, right?
Yeah, fuck that.
Now, if you think about it in the way of train till you're beat into the ground and all that, or you're not getting any gains, which is what most people think of that phrase.
Unfortunately, yes, you're right.
That's what most people think of that phrase. But when I hurt this doesn't develop from the ACL. This was developed very recently when I hurt my back in December squatting. I was forced then to rethink how I'm squatting, rebuild the squat from square one again, which I had to do when I tore my ACL. And I realized how important all the little things, like all the core warm up, all the activation of the muscles, all the stretches and stuff that I wasn't doing before. I was going to the gym and getting in the squat rack, and my warm up was not even the bar. My warm up was 135 pounds, doing it 5 times. And then I would do 185 3 times, 225 twice, 275 once, 315 once, and go up from there until I would go back down to 275, 315 and do whatever, 3 sets of 3, whatever, something like that, something along those lines. So through that process, I took that phrase of no pain, no gain and rethought of it as, if I didn't go through that injury, I would not have gained the knowledge of what to do.
Good for you.
To prevent future injury.
Good for you. Yeah.
So what the identifying as a power lifter and squat being my favorite, right? Making
Oh,
that
okay.
known, then being like, oh shit, I can't squat. Oh, I can't even really deadlift because this is a back injury. But then realizing, okay, if I do this, I can deadlift. If I do this, I can still bench. So all right, so I can still bench and deadlift, and then doing all of the different corrective exercises. Oh, now
Yep.
I've also found a way where I've found an ability to develop more content for my social media, where now on Tuesdays I can give tips on stuff that has helped me through my back injury.
Yep. Yep.
And then that also opened the door for me to now do much more yoga, because I know how much it can benefit my spine and core health.
Because you weren't doing it before. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
now, and then just getting back into squatting and then going on quarantine. Like I squatted for like 2 weeks and then we went on quarantine, and then just being like, damn it, I was just getting back into squatting. But then having the door open where now I have more time to focus on yoga and the correctives and doing all that, so I can improve my health even more on
And
my back and my spine, and do squatting and stuff with, only 35 pounds on my
you
back.
can also diversify and do single leg squats, do shrimp squats, do pistol squats, right? In order to hit a pistol squat, you have to have a full functional, which means controlled range of motion from your ankle, your knee, your hip, your pelvis, and consequently your lumbar spine. Not just those joints, every single tissue involved with mobilizing, stabilizing, and then getting you out of the hole.
Yeah.
Pistol squat is a great thing to work towards to build your mobility and stability for a normal squat. It's not for everyone. There's a certain requisite of strength and range of motion big time, stability a little bit less so. And if you have a huge belly, you're not going to be able to pistol because your belly's in the way of your legs, right? So it's not for everyone, but for you specifically, diversifying and doing those single leg squat variations, shrimp squats and pistol squats can be really difficult. You add a little bit of weight
I haven't made a video to put out on the social media or anything about pistol squats, but I do them regularly, just because of how accomplished I feel doing pistol squats.
Oh, sure.
Because I know how difficult it is, and there is a video somewhere on my Snapchat that someone took of me doing a pistol squat on a Bosu ball with the curve underneath with me on the flat, and
that's fun. Yeah.
In Crocs.
It's all for the gram, baby. It's all for the gram.
In Crocs too, and I never posted it or anything like that. Like, but I've never incorporated pistol squats to the point where I do more than like 5 in a leg in a workout, which, okay, that's still a lot. Like, but
sure.
I never incorporated it so much so as I am now when I'm doing it here. But I know that because like I've never been formally taught how to do a pistol squat, right? But I know that I'm on one leg and I go down and I come up. So I go down and my butt touches the back of my heel even, and comes all the way back up. And I don't know if like I'm leaning over wrong or if
you have to,
wrong.
unless someone's proportions are all fucked up as far as their tibia, femur to spine proportions are way like 2 deviations from normal. You have to lean forward in a pistol squat. You have to round out. That's part of the mobility aspect. Okay. You can't brace a stable spine. You have to be able to move into a flex position and control said position without hurting yourself, right? So it's a form of misalignment training for your spine. And that's my thing with powerlifting. I feel like Chris Duffin at a minimum, maybe Donnie Thompson, some other guys, they talk about, maybe it's not them. Shit, actually, I don't know now. But there are people, someone at some workshop somewhere talked about the fact that if you can't get into misalignment with the bar, like a Jefferson curl or something like that, where you're intentionally rounding your spine out with just the bar, you have no business deadlifting heavy weights. Because what happens when you lose your perfect neutral position? Something's going to go wrong. That could have been prevented if you, with much lighter weights, safely, not high volume, not with a lot of velocity, not with a lot of intensity, but if you do intentional misalignment training, you're building motor control in those areas that, unfortunately, it's going to happen at some point when you're challenging your body, right? So you can't be braced perfectly all the time. You have to understand how to move into and out of misalignment.
Which is exactly how I hurt my back squatting. In the hole, I went too deep, rounded my lower back, and came up. Thought I was fine. Deadlifted the next day.
Oh, I've made that mistake.
Realized I'm not fine.
Yeah.
And was having trouble walking for 2 days. Like that's how bad it had gotten. And so was very happy to have the realization that, one, I've done so much squatting, so all that pressure compact
all the compression
brain stuff. You know what my favorite and what I get the most relief of? Just doing a fold. That when in yoga, when they say, just do the fold.
Just flexing.
Like completely folding over, having a slight bend in the knee, just hanging the arms down, and just getting that release in my lower back. Was very happy to realize that it's like a psoas SI joint thing, not like
like a disc bulge herniation,
like disc or something that needed like a surgery type.
Like a surgery,
I was very happy when I went through that. I went through that with Sean Nixon, actually. I did some things and showed him some things. He's like, oh yeah, you definitely, it's your psoas or your SI joint. That's what it is. It's like, you definitely don't need surgery. You need to strengthen your back, and you need to do these different stretches, and we need to figure out what the correct depth is in your squat. And I need to look at your squat and diagnose what's wrong about it, and little tiny tweaks that we can do so that you don't get into that position again where you fold down at the bottom. And because that butt wink at the bottom causing the rounding of the spine is also at a point where I'm trying to shoot up out of the hole.
Yeah, exactly. It's max tension mechanically and velocity wise.
So it's coming down, doing that slight bend, and then exploding.
And it's biometrically using it.
Also to that, all that combined, also it was 315 pounds. It was the fifth set, fifth rep. So it was 25th rep of 315 in a workout that I first went up to 405 and then came back down and did 5 sets of 315. Like it was a lot of stress with a lot of weight and the butt wink and the explosion that led to that injury. So
exactly.
So it took me 3 months of doing rehab stuff to where I felt comfortable to get back in a squat rack and even do 225. But my squat form is very all right, to the naked eye, it's not very different. To me, mechanically feeling it, it's very different than what I was doing before. And now I'm able also very different. Squatting here, I'm not putting my squat shoes on and getting my heel.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like
you're not cheating it.
I'm in my socks or barefoot and doing it. So what I think is very important I think that I'm going to benefit a lot from not just doing so much yoga and stuff in this meantime, but also the amount of reps and rep range that I'm doing with the lower weight. I think it's going to be very good for my joint
exactly
and stuff like that moving forward. So that's what the whole, when I changed that, the brute strength, no pain, no gain, to put the glasses on, no pain, no gain, because if you didn't get injured, you wouldn't have learned these different things. Like, what I mean? Like,
exactly.
That mindset.
Which is good for people who are in the industry and looking to help other people with fitness. But going back to the phrase that you butchered, wisdom is learning from other people's mistakes. You don't want newbies who are not in the industry, they're not competitors, this is not their life, to hurt themselves doing those things. Because for them, it's highly unlikely that they will gain intellectually and that they will grow from their injury, right?
Yeah.
Most people have such a negative self-image for their body. I'm always shocked when people kind of like basically like bash their body. They're like, oh, my body betrayed me. Like, no, fuckhead, you betrayed your body, and that's why you betrayed your body for the past 5, 10, 15 years. That's why you are where you are. Your body didn't betray you. You fucked it up, right? So it's like people have, so it's good for us to learn from that because we have resiliency. We'll bounce back from it. It's an opportunity, and then we can give to others. But man, we got to keep normal people away from having those injuries because they're not recovering from it. They're not gaining from it. But I love that phrase. I've never heard that before. That twist of it, right? The thought process is fantastic.
And the way and what you said is very important because what's the majority of the person that gets into exercise and gets hurt? What do? Oh, exercise hurts me. I'm not going to do it anymore.
Correct. Yeah, it's how you exercise and where you started.
Most people think. And then you also have the person of, I get hurt. I hurt my ankle. I can't go back to the gym until the ankle's healed. Whereas when I tore my ACL, I was in the gym 2 weeks
doing all the other.
I did rehab twice. I did actual physical therapy twice a week, and I worked with Sean twice a week. And I was in the gym the other 3 days of the week doing whatever I could, whether it was picking up a dumbbell and doing a bicep curl.
And that's the lesson. Do what you can. Do whatever you can.
I hurt my legs. My arms were perfectly fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
My right leg, my left leg was perfectly fine. So I was doing single leg, freaking leg press and stuff. Like I was mad at myself for taking those 2 weeks off right after surgery. Like,
sometimes you need to. Well, surgery is also a stressor, not just on what was cut open, but being cut open is an immense stress on your internal system, right? So it's probably a good thing to not stack intensity on top of your body trying to heal.
Absolutely. And where I think a lot of people don't know, again, lack of education. So their fear of going to the gym after they get an injury, whether it be to one single part of their body, and the lack of understanding that the other parts of your body you can still do what you can, right? So where was I going with that? The mindset that, so when you work out and say I have my ACL injury, but I'm causing a stressor on my bicep to now, the tears in the sarcomere walls of the muscle spindles and muscle fibers, so it can get bigger, right? So what that's doing is I'm causing a stress on the body to put the body in the mindset of I need to repair. But it's not only going to repair that one bicep. It knows there's multiple parts of the body that repair. So it's circulating. First off, doing this it's not just circulating blood to the bicep, it's circulating blood
in general. Yeah, exactly.
To your body.
But it's going to prioritize nutrients and enzymes and white blood cells and all that shit to that area. You're right, they'll go to another place. Some people's bodies have much more innate intelligence, right? Because it's all autopilot. That's the stuff that we were talking about before that we're just given. Some people's less so. But it comes back to dosage. If you crush your biceps for 20 rounds, you're getting less of the good things to the injury because that's too much of a signal. It's too loud of a signal. It's too extreme. You did so much damage, right? But if you stimulate, so you can stimulate something, you can develop something, you can destroy something, right? If you stimulate it or develop it, yes, those things are floating all around your system. If you destroy it, which people have a tendency to do, it's like, you probably have more stress hormones in your system than you do growth factors, right? So it's dosage. It depends. It depends on how you use it. But dude, seriously, Jesus Christ, that's like 3.5 hours.
Yeah, it's 9:40.
Bro, I shot my load. I'm done. I'm getting tired. I'm yawning, and I'm hungry too.
Yeah,
I ate right beforehand, but I need to eat again. This was my high volume week. This was at the 6-week block. This is my high volume week. I hit the track today. I hit 4 200s. I came back. I was doing endurance work with bands, front squats, single leg hinges, rows and push-ups is 4 sets of 15 with 30 seconds rest. So I'm like, it was a big pump workout. I need some fuel.
Hell yeah, man. Well,
That was good stuff though.
dude, that was amazing. I'm so happy we did this. Thank you so much for taking
Thank you.
the 4 hours out of your day to sit here with me.
I'm single on quarantine.
Dude, it means the world to me that you would take your time to do this though. This
was fun. You know what? I've always wanted to do a podcast. I'm going to be honest with you. What really sold me is when, and I've seen it before, but it didn't hit me. The podcast is called Free Yourself. And I already knew what I wanted to talk about. I didn't want to get caught up in sets and reps. I wanted to talk about the real shit. The reason why you do your sets and reps, the reasons why you even go into the gym, right? So I'm glad that that not only were you okay with that, but you jive with that, right? Because that's the real conversation. That's the conversation that needs to be had more often to help normal people, because they're being exposed to the superficial bullshit. It doesn't help them. It doesn't teach them anything. They don't learn anything, right? Yeah. You need to have those deeper conversations. So I'm glad we did this. And I'm glad it is what I wanted it to be, even though it's not what you expected it to be.
See, and what are expectations? They're predetermined resentments. So that's another. That's
good. I've never heard that before either.
That's another quote I definitely did not make up. I've heard over my journey and stuff, but I quotes help me to put into understanding something bigger that I don't understand. And
I agree.
And I agree. I'm able to pull from them when something like this happens and come to an understanding of the one of my favorite things that's helped me a lot on my journey is that everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's true or not is irrelevant.
Bingo.
It's my belief that helps me get through my day.
Exactly. And it's a positive belief. I completely agree with what you said. It's irrelevant if it's true or not, because it's a positive thing. If it was a negative thing, now it matters whether or not it's true.
Now, the belief that fuels that is that I believe you give power to whatever you believe.
I agree.
So
I agree.
That's where my spirituality is anchored. Is you give power to whatever you believe. That anything that you say after I am is true.
Yep.
And that everything that happens to me is the best thing that can happen to me, and everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to happen.
Yep.
That's like
I agree.
That's my core beliefs with all that, man. So thank you so much for doing this.
High five.
Quarantine, social distancing, high five.
2020.
It's freaking. This has been amazing, man. I
agree.
I definitely want to have you on more regularly and do this more often, man.
And now that we covered some of the important shit, we can have a specific conversation next time.
Yeah, and even if it's not on, the podcast, just like talking more than just our silly little group chat on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I love you, man.
Right.
Thank you so much to everybody. I love you guys. Peace, love, unity, respect.
Adios. Bye-bye. I'll see you.